a true Uncanny X-Men fan. Like, New Mutants, I always would get to them on the crossovers, but I was never there. So made an
Yeah.
easy decision. So, all right. So I'll just wait for your link so I can retweet it out.
Should be live now.
Looking forward to your hot takes and your sunny Philadelphia conspiracy theories.
I hope I didn't build it up too much. I actually forgot to.
Well, I wrote down pretty much all your questions for
I saw,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, and we can finally get to do who's on our Sinister Six. So
I have to change the thumbnail because it's still the DC thumbnail, and people will be like, "What?"
I did not tune into DC.
Yeah.
What is this? What is this crud? We're not going to talk about Batman saying the F word, are we?
Oh no, you wouldn't want to do that. It's at the Twitter world ablaze.
Yeah, it's so funny how many different ways we could find a way to sneak that word in. Those are pretty good.
I know. I feel like the whatever that it will actually be will be disappointing now.
Probably. Get the effing car. Well, that seemed hardly worth it. I was curious which GIF you were going to use on the promotion of the show. I said, oh, please let him use one where he's busting through and scaring at May, saying, say it, finish it.
Well, unfortunately, there's a couple gifts I want to use, but they weren't the highest quality, and that's the problem with movies from 2002. So that's why I went with the Itsy Bitsy Spire one, because I was
that
trying
worked.
to find a great, I'm something of a scientist myself, but that was harder to find.
I'm sort of kind of available.
Yeah,
Those were pretty good. That is such a thing. When you said that to me, it said Gyllenhaal stand. I was like, sure, we'll go with yes.
I guess it's the same guy, like listed as far as name and stuff. So it's like, all right. Bad, Travis. I didn't even save the thumbnail.
Oh no. You have to make it on the fly.
It's already made. I literally just have to save it.
Oh, okay,
So
gotcha.
Anybody in the chat or watching, you get to watch me. Nice hat, Mr. Snow. Oh, thank you, Nathan. You're here for me saving and correcting a thumbnail. You're seeing me cover my ass, as they say in the industry.
Hey, Nathan. I was like, wait a minute. Willem Dafoe and Cyborg?
Yeah, big get for Marvel. They got Ray Fisher. Okay. I was so prepared too. Had everything all set up last night, but that's what happens when you just don't hit the save button, ladies and gentlemen.
I tell people save and save often.
Oh yeah, it's been a. Luckily, I didn't lose too much, but I'm using this new screenwriting program, and I had lost a couple pages because I thought I'd saved automatically, and my old program used to, and I swear this did, but it didn't. So luckily, it wasn't too much, but I was a little peeved to have to just rewrite the entire thing again, but it's all right. Oh, come on, load up picture.
Oh, that audio from Tom Cruise was classic. That literally is like a like him in Tropic Thunder.
Oh, I know it's gonna be an interesting few days. I can't wait to see. Can't wait to see the statement put out.
They'd be like, "Why am I? What is he apologizing for?"
Yeah. Okay.
What is he apologizing for?
Whoa, no
Oh,
audio. Okay.
hearing myself live.
Okay, now it's up there, and now I'm gonna share it, and we're good to go in about 30 seconds here.
That was wrong. Small chit chat wasn't necessary tonight.
All right, tweet is out there
All
into the
right, let me
universe.
out in the open. Right. There we go. Right, there it is. Share. There we go. It's there. Perfect. All right. All right. You ready to rock and roll?
Yes.
Let us end 2020 with a bang with Marvel news. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we go from the Mojo Verse to Earth 616 to the Negative Zone to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. My name is the Uncanny Chris.
I'm the podcaster of Mischief Trust Snail.
Alliance Assemble.
Assemble. Boom. Here we go. Last Marvel Alliance of 2020. Should be a good one. Chris, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. I've got a good report from the dentist today. I only have one filling, despite me continually brushing and flossing and following the rules at that point. My teeth seem to betray me. I guess I'm not as young as I used to be.
No, you got to get them in line. No, it's
But yeah, 3 days left of work, then 2 weeks of break.
2 weeks of break. That's nice. I got 5 days left to work and then 6 days of break. So that's what I get. So they're not
Nice.
all together like yours are nicely, but I'll still take them. So, and I'll let everyone know who's on the video or the audio side. I do have a sent hat on, but I'm not sure if you know, Chris, this nice Thanos mug. I got this last
Look at
year.
that.
Yeah. And
Look at that.
Can you guess what's in this mug?
Well, it's probably not coffee. That's what's in my mug, but
good old classic eggnog, the best drink you can time the season. Oh,
that 50% of our audience said yes, and the other half said, "What the heck are you talking about?"
Yeah, I know. They just like your teeth, they betray me. So yeah.
Boom, boom, touche.
Because the shadows belong to me. I love that fight in Dark Knight Rises. Ladies and gentlemen, we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. And before we plug a bunch of shows, we just wanted to give you a shout out. And yes, you a shout out for everyone that listened and shared and supported us last week. Last week was by far our biggest Marvel Alliance ever. It was, for some inside baseball, our biggest episode since DC Fandom. That's number 2, and it's still climbing. So we might be coming for DC Fandom, but I think it was pretty impressive considering the week of, we told everyone we were going to do a special episode. It's not like Fandom where we promoted for months and stuff. Oh, we're doing this. So just a big thank you to everybody that tuned in. The live chats were fun. And yeah, it was great. And it's like we said, this is our last episode for 2020, unless something major happens, but as right now. But it was nice that we got to do the normal one, and then we did a 0.5. And yeah, it's been a great year so far. I speak this for myself as a host, but also people with Geek First and the network. Everything's gone a lot better than we thought. Not that we thought you were going to go bad, but you kind of have, expectations. You have expectations. We always set them that right. And then it was like, okay, this is me and them, and then it just kept going and going. And it's a knock on wood, but even the whole network in general, you guys are looking like this is gonna be our biggest month, and it's just like 7 months we've been going, and each month's been bigger than the last. So it's just a thank you to everybody, whether it's people hosting on the network, but the people listening, because you guys, whether it's engagement on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else, or just privately, it means the world to us. And last week was great because it had like that big kind of fight feel of a big episode. And a big thank you to Travis and Brent who were on it, and also just a big thank you to everybody, whether it's Greg or Nathan or Katie or Taylor, people that have guested on this whole year. I love doing this every week. It's been so much fun with you, Chris, and obviously you're gonna thank the viewers too, but I gotta thank you because you run this ship. There's times where my schedule gets in the way, and you've made the show better than I could possibly imagine. So this has been a good run so far, but I'm excited for 2021 because we're gonna get WandaVision, we're gonna get more news, hopefully a Black Widow film. Yeah, hopefully a Black Widow film. So, but I'm very excited to see what's happening in the future. But I know you share the same sentiment with me as far as the listeners going, because they support us big time last week.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, again, just when just watching even after 24 hours, it getting as high as it did, the viewership is just like blew us both away. And again, just getting, and I'll echo this at the end of the show, just saying that never saw this happening in 2020, not only just changing stuff and joining a network, but it's been a great pleasure hosting with you and getting to know you, my friend, and all the listeners and the other hosts, and again, listeners, viewers, just a huge thanks, because you guys took a chance on us. Some of you followed us from our respective shows over to this and giving us a chance, and those of you that we take inspiration from, and who you all are out there, we want to thank you for giving us that opportunity. So, but it's just humbling. So
oh yeah, it's been for a strange year that was 2020. There's been some bright spots, and this network was one of them, and this show was one of them. And yeah, I'm excited to continue our 9-8 Bulls run going to 2021. But if this is your first time, if you're wondering what are these guys talking about, we are part of Geek Ultimate Alliance. This is a network that has 7 days, 10 shows, some of them bi-weekly. You got your Marvel, your Star Wars, your DC, World's Finest True Believers, a bunch of stuff. I'm going to throw to Chris to plug what he's doing. But the best thing to do is what we've done now. There's comic reviews in the description down below. Every single day, every single show, when they are, even on YouTube, you can go find it there. So now it's like, oh, there's so many shows. You can just scroll down a little bit, whether you're on YouTube or Twitter, and it's all there. Links are there, everything like that. But Chris, what are you talking about this week? And then also what's happening with the next 2 weeks, at least, because we're taking a break with Marvel Alliance. I guess I will say that for Marvel Alliance, what we're doing for the next 2 weeks is we're putting the comic book clubs all put together. So if you like the House of Dawn or House of X or Civil War, but you had to listen to it weekly, this is literally gonna be from issue 1 all the way to the end issue, and it's gonna be one entire episode. So it's kind of like a retro episode, but it's something new and we haven't done before, and we liked those episodes, those content. I'm sure there's still some people that haven't heard them because they're in the back half of the show or whatnot, but that's gonna be happening, like I said, unless something major happens. Like I said, unless Kevin Feige gets fired. If he gets fired, then yeah, we'll be here, we're talking about, but until then we'll be back.
I like it. He goes to that, he goes to like the most depressing thing that could happen at
well, okay, because in my opinion, before you play what's gonna happen with World Finance, in these next 2 weeks is like holiday season. That's why I think it would only be bad news, like only something that like they're not gonna put out many good news right now. So I feel like it'd have to be something like the James Gunn when he got fired, like this wasn't in the books, like this, that's what would happen. That's why I feel like it's going to be something bad, but hopefully it's just a nice holiday season, even though we were supposed to get Spider-Man footage and stuff, and we still haven't got that,
2 weeks.
So
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, maybe it'll be like a 15-minute cast somewhere one day. But what are you doing with World's Finest True Believers for the rest of the year?
Yeah, well, we just dropped the last new episode of the new quote unquote new episode for those that have been with the show for a while of the year, with Nathan doing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Year 1. Awesome way to end the year. Outstanding just book. If you know Power Rangers, you don't know it like this. This is definitely a big step up from the TV show's great, but this is a different step up from what the TV shows. This ain't your mom and dad's Power Rangers, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be, I do have new episodes in the can, but definitely want to give you all the time to, if you want to just, not worry about it or listen to it occasionally. At that point, I'm going to be dropping 2 retros, one each week. Not sure what those retros are, but it's because I didn't come to the show prepared to say what those are, but but it'll be a
prepared for everything
surprise.
else, but
Yeah, prepare
but
for everything else at that point. But yeah, it'll be, it's they'll be good because I love my show and every episode's good at that point. So yeah, it'll be Christmas and New Year surprise week. So we got Christmas and then we got that. I would say I've had a Christmas theme, but I already dropped Batman Noel, so that was terribly timed. So
it
um,
happens.
but yeah, the next 2
Fanboy
weeks.
Clay says you're still in his content. No, man, it's all about synergy because they'll see, maybe they'll come to Chris's show and be like, I love Power Rangers. And then they go, oh, look, there's a whole Rangers Alliance every Thursday right now, bi-weekly. So there you go.
But yeah, so it'll be two, and then the first week we get the first week, full week of the new year in January, we will drop the new episode at that point, and we're gonna start off with a little bit of Marvel, starting off the year with a little bit of
Ooh.
Marvel. So I'll leave it at that. A returning guest is we're continuing their selection of Marvel. So
Very exciting. And then the other thing to plug just overall, well, there's two things. One, of course, the Patreon. Go over there, $1, you support us. About $5, you get a bunch of stuff, ad-free episodes. So that's a good way to support the channel. If you don't want to listen to the ads, you get them early. So things like World's Finest or Slice of Film, stuff like that. They're shows that recorded in advance, so you get those a few days early. Ranger Alliance last time you got a week early, so kind of all these things going on there, and you get the exclusive episodes. There's amalgam chats there. There's comic book top 10 rankings. What we're doing tomorrow looks like it's going to be happening. It's going to be myself, Katie, Greg, Travis, Lisa from My Love That Movies, and maybe Joe. We're hoping for Ranger Alliance, and maybe more. We don't know. We're just gonna throw the link. And I think even Sarah says she could go. So, but what we're gonna do is rank the Star Wars movies because technically it's like there is 10 of them because they're animated ones, so it is a top 10. But we're just kind of ranking them, and that will be on Patreon. That's gonna be lots. That's gonna be fun. I'm sure there'll be no controversial lists in that at all because I feel like I have a range variety of what people feel in Star Wars, but I've never talked to anybody like, oh, I love Star Wars, but me and Katie and January are going to do amalgam chat about Star Wars and Marvel, but I've yet to really been on a podcast talking about anything Star Wars with any of these people. So I'm very excited to see who puts what where, and I'm excited to see where Jedi and Rise of Skywalker land. And then, but finally, this is because it's like a whole network thing. Is obviously Wonder Woman is coming out. Wonder Woman episodes. Yeah, the Wonder Woman Alliance is coming. No, reviews these big movies when we'll get into it as far as the streaming shows next year with WandaVision, Snyder Cut, and stuff like that. We're figuring out different ways of where they're going to release, but those will be on their respective shows. It's looking like for the movies and whatnot, it's going to work the same way we did DC Fandom in August, where it's like whoever can join us for that review will be on that, and those will kind of be depending on the date. As of right now, we're looking at for the network Sunday. What would that be? Is it the 27th, Chris? The 2 days after?
yeah, it'll be 27th. We're planning on going live around 9 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do right now. Roster right now is
at
Greg.
Night.
Yeah, at night. Yeah. Greg, Travis, and Chris. But there'll probably be more. If I can, I'll join and whatnot. But that's what's gonna happen. Is it's kind of everybody can be on it. You can watch it live, and then it'll drop on the feed. Just it's kind of like a bonus episode. Really, it's a bonus episode. We're not putting on Patreon. You don't got to go behind a paywall to get the review. It'll just be right there on the feed for you. So I think that's everything. I think there's lots of stuff, but it's lots of good stuff.
Oh, always good stuff on the network. Always.
Yes.
Never a bad moment.
No, never. We've never failed once. But speaking of never a bad moment, what is happening in Mar right now? Because even we were surprised. It's not like these are massive news items, but we still got some news considering last week dropped a bunch of stuff. So
we'll call it Marvel Mondays because it seems to be they like dropping. We like putting Chris and Travis on edge, saying, "I don't know what's going to happen this week. I haven't dropped too much. It's either Fridays or Mondays." Marvel seems to drop some gems. But yeah, so we got two main topics. Starting off with Willem Dafoe and Thomas Hayden Church negotiating a return in mind-blowing sequel, an exclusive coming from the Travis's favorite blog, the Illuminati.
My favorite, great name. Those guys just must be on a roll right now because they're dropping scoops for Dexter and Moon Knight and DCU and stuff. Which again, I just believe like their mother is working for Black Adam because like the amount of scoops they've gone for that is ridiculous. But
they're definitely. I mean, again, they're putting themselves out there. They always make sure. Hey, we haven't forgotten about you, Marvel. Hey, we've forgotten about you, Dexter. But they said previously, Fandom Wire reported that the Green Goblin character is intended to return in the sequel. It seems that they were onto something as Willem and Thomas Hayden Church are both attached to return, according to their source. Their deals are still being finalized, but they are indeed a part of the Spider-Man's 3 the master plan for it. Unfortunately, they were unable to get any info on the size of their appearances. However, judging by the size of the cast, it's hard to imagine them being anything huge. And kind of like from whatever we've been hearing recently, pretty much a good number of these, maybe outside of the spiders, Spider-Man at that point, the rest of them will probably be some sort of longer cameo versus a key role. Maybe Jamie Foxx might be the one that will be like supposedly the bigger villain, or at least the antagonist for the movie.
Well, it's just so funny how far we've come from that report of Jamie Foxx is coming back as a lecturer and just thinking, oh, that's a weird choice.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, right. He's still denying. And like, it's like, oh, it's a weird choice. What version he's playing? Just to that thinking, okay, they're bringing back this actor who's great and didn't have a great shake. Okay, maybe that's just it. And now it's just like, literally the floodgates have just been open as far as Toby and Andrew, and then the females as far as Dunst and Stone, and now you got all these villains. The Fox thing, I just wonder, because I was going to pose this question to you. So it's funny you brought that up. I was like, I wonder, did he get announced first because he is a bigger one? Or it's just like, that's the one that people got first and he's just kind of the same size as the rest of them, right? It's tough because, so here's the thing, because we're going to talk about a few different things as far as just my base thoughts, as far as those two, Dafoe and Church. Church, really underrated. Spider-Man 3, we've talked about this before multiple times. I do not think it's not a good movie, but it's not, I always consider there's tiers of comic book films, and something like, for me, like The Dark Knight, Logan, people like you can say Winter Soldier, things like that. They're on this A tier of like that changed the genre, right? And then there's kind of trickling tiers. I don't think it's in a failing tier. There's that tier where it's like, this is the god awful Howard the Duck tier or Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. Sorry, Taylor. But like, I don't think it's that. I think people put it that is because when we saw Spider-Man 3, there wasn't that many comic movies. So when it was that bad at the time, it was, oh, this is the worst one. Now in comparison, it's nowhere near the worst. I think it's somewhere in the middle of the pack. I always say it's like a 6 out of 10 stuff. And because of that, there's good things in that movie. And Thomas St. Church was one of them. His storyline is so messy. It doesn't make sense. I hate the whole retconning of Uncle Ben and all this stuff, but just his performance alone, he was really good. And I think people feel this same way as me, is like that, like Sandman reveal scene is fantastic with the music and him trying to grab that locket and everything. They did a good job with that character, and the effects were really good for even that time. So I'm excited for him to come back. Like we've talked about their cameos. Dafoe is interesting because we had talked about this with Brent, because he's in the same camp as me, is like, Defoe's my guy. And I consider that one, because Green Goblin, to me, there's always this debate of like, who is Spider-Man's Joker? Is it, is it Goblin? Is it Venom? Is it Doc Ock? For me, it's always been Goblin. It's always been Norman. And I think that Dafoe, to me, I'd have to make a list, but he's somewhere in my top 10 for villain performances. I think he did phenomenal. I don't think he actually gets enough credit because I think he plays that duality really good. People often forget that even when he makes the turn as bad Norman, he still like has a heart there as a character, and there's still times where he doesn't want to do things. He, to me, is like, I've compared Toby to Keaton for Marvel. He is his Nicholson. He's the Joker. He's, so I think it's great to have him back. What I'm just wondering is with these cameos now and everything, because Norman, I was like, did the deal fall through, or is Norman they want to hold? Because for me, so these cameos happen, right? And that's where I guess I'm thinking of a Spider-Man 4 with these cameos, and we have a lot of questions posed here. What are these now to you? Because I know we've talked about possibilities, but are these, I don't know, you have all these different characters, right? Are they from their movies? Are they doing the J.K. Simmons thing? Is there a mixture of them? And now when the MCU, let's say Spider-Man sticks around, they want to do their Norman. Would Norman be Willem Dafoe now? Like, that's the thing where I'm starting to wonder now, like, what is the case with all these? And it's tough.
Yeah, no, it is. Just saying the chat, Philip Barker's in the chat, just saying Sandman was also awesome. Like the sequences. Yeah, those sequences were definitely great. The amount of CG that made it look really awesome was great. And I think despite the retcon, I think I never thought I'd actually feel sorry for Sandman in the character at that point. I think that movie has a lot of, you could almost tell Sam Raimi wasn't happy for various reasons, and the movie kind of showed that that it wasn't. But anyways, getting to your question, I think that this is a way, like you have said and others have said, that this is a way to kind of introduce the idea of who Norman Osborn is to a Peter Parker that has not yet met his Norman Osborn. I see them as portraying their versions, or at least as they've said, maybe not the exact version, but somewhat close to the version. And yes, I know in Toby's, Green Goblin's dead or Norman's dead at
Mhm.
that point. So, but there'll be obviously a little bit of retconning in the sense of, like I said, it will be a version of Green Goblin that just happens to be on a version of Tobey Maguire's, or it may not be. It just may be a version of Green Goblin. But this is the way to say, hey, that Norman Osborn, I met him, or I had a encounter with a evil Norman Osborn, and then the next, and again, I'm being very optimistic. Our next Spider-Man trilogy with this current Spider-Man, this is where we bring in Norman Osborn, because I think that's a must-have in the next set. You have to have Norman Osborn, and Green Goblin will be in the next movies.
I agree with you, and like I'm not going to spoil the whole cast, but I would say check out our Patreon episode me and Trask did, because my whole crux of we did a pitch the next trilogy of Spider-Man, and my crux was like what Chris was talking about, where he meets Norman, and my tagline or like to sell it was like, if Toby and whatnot they're leaving through the portal, and he just like assures him like, if you ever meet someone named Norman Osborn, don't trust him. And if people watch the CW the way they did with Wells after season 1 in Flash, that's how I kind of think they should do Norman in the MCU of like, can I trust this guy? Can I not? Because the reason I asked that question, because I saw a lot of people online going with, like not too disappointed, but there were some people like, if thinking, let's say they're doing the MCU the same way as like J.K. Simmons playing Jonah. He is clearly now Jonah in the MCU, right? And there was a lot of people, not a lot, but enough people that I saw it was worth talking about as far as, oh, they're just doing Dafoe. And I don't think these people are bringing up as far as, oh, I dislike Dafoe, anything like that. Just that there's no one else out there. It's kind of like running it back, or maybe they're scared to cast anybody else. And that's where it's like, even though I love Dafoe and he's perfect, the only reason I'd want Dafoe to like really come back in the future is like, for some reason, let's say if they did a Spider-Man 4 with Toby and it's like somehow he's alive, I would want a new actor in the MCU as that. JK was different because I think he is perfect for the role, but also it's more a minor role, right? It's never going to be too heavy. There might be, apparently he has more screen time in this, which is great. Maybe there's some leading to Scorpion being built. That's great. But he's never going to be on the poster like the way Green Goblin was like split down the half with Spider-Man, So it's just like, it's a bigger role. So I do understand some people's of like, I do want something new and I want him to have his own identity. I think that some people was worried too that maybe don't even love the Amazing Spider-Man or the 2002 Spider-Man. It's like, I want Tom Holland's world to be his world, not be kind of riddled with of the past. I want him to stand on his own. So I do understand that. And I do almost side with that in a bit, that when we get our MCU Norman, I would like someone different, because I feel that, like you said, we're gonna have to do some kind of backflips to do with it. But Norman Osborn, I think, had a really good resolution in the Spider-Man 2002, and I wouldn't really want to be like, well, he's back, and it's just, I was like, I guess, but it's not anything that I'm looking particularly forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing him in a cameo sense role. I don't know how much I'd be looking forward to seeing him as like the let's say they do some sort of Crisis on Infinite Earths thing, right? And it's like they meld the Spider-Man uses the verses together, and
Call
somehow
those Secret Wars.
well, yeah, exactly. Willem Dafoe is now Norman on this world. I could understand the pushback, like, oh, okay, like this just feels like you're supplanting that story. But we've heard rumors that just in general, Oscorp is also in this movie as well. So I don't know. It's interesting, but this is just kind of a who's who of villains now.
Yeah, again, this is, Feige has never shied away from honoring the past and honoring what was done before, and so this is a surefire way to easily kind of get everyone's little. I mean, this is what on its face value glorified fan service,
Oh, 100%.
and so we're not kidding ourselves on that. So even if we get a few minutes with some of these cast members and having that kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, they exist at that point. I think they're an amazing group of actors, and I will dare I say actresses that could be an outstanding Norman Osborn,
Mhm.
at that point. And I don't whatever it is, or just Osborn in general. As I said, I said it. You can do a female, you can do a male at that point, whatever it is. But that character lends itself to be a very sought after role to who gets to be who gets to portray the Green Goblin in the MCU.
Joe said, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, but so yeah, so I think that would be. Yet I don't see Willem Dafoe lobbying to continue the character beyond this kind of appearance. I think he is an amazing actor within his own right. Deer Hunter by far is one of my favorite films next to
Mhm.
Boondock Saints with him, but I think Feige is not one to just continue on with what's been done. He has always wanted to push it, put his own stamp on it, and that's just who he is. What were you about to say, Joe, in the chat?
No, I'll return back that because I was going to bring some up, but it ties in my fact or fiction because it is tough of like between this and we talked about this months ago about those conversations that he had with Patrick Stewart. It's like I've always believed that of Feige, but now I'm getting like a different sense of maybe he's still open to some ideas, right? Because it's like
fair.
Why did
I forgot about the Patrick Stewart.
Yeah,
stuff.
like why did he need to talk to Patrick Stewart? He didn't need to at all. It's kind of interesting. But Joe, yeah, exactly. Joe said, "Do we know though? Green Goblin is the only one we saw die. We never got a body frog." So Joe, I understand, but I feel like people do so many mental gymnastics as far as like he's sinking in the bottom of the lake or whatnot, and he looks dead. He looks dead, even though I know people say, "Oh, in Spider-Man 3, it says Doc Ock's still large." So fine, you can make that con. I think last thing with Goblin, I do think it could be a different Goblin because this is what we're going to talk about. I know I'm this might be so. Travis is going to roll over in his, future grave right now, saying like, it might be even more minority take of. I always say that I like the theatrical BVS more than the Ultimate Cut. Shoot me, whatever you want to say, but it's probably more minority.
And that's the end of Marvel Alliance, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.
It's more of a minority take probably is that I actually like the Green Goblin outfit. Do I like it more than the comic books? No, but I really like it. And the other reason is because I think people give it way too much shit. Look at all the comic films.
I agree with that.
Look at the comic books films happening at that point. Like X-Men, their leather suits, they dumped everything down. They easily just could have made him in a glider with like a green tracksuit. They like, yeah, sure, they went comic booky. Was it the comic booky we love? Was it a little plastic looking? Sure, but I really liked the aesthetic and the look. I liked the armor plates, and I think it worked. I know people always show those clips of the mask that was unused, but I guarantee you that mask was going to be a bitch to use. Like it did not look like actor friendly at that point in time, and now we can just CGI a face on it, and it's good to go. Like he had the skin tight, kind of like looking very much like Red Skull. So that's what I was going to ask you, Chris. Of like, I imagined this Green Goblin that comes back, he'll be some sort of like he's from Toby's universe of alternate dimension of like, let's say he won in that dimension, right? Like we talked about Loki with his trailer. It shows like, oh, maybe there's a one where the Avengers lost. Maybe this is, oh, he won in his universe as Green Goblin. Do you think we see, obviously we would see Willem Dafoe, but do you think we see that suit or do you think we get a more comic accurate one? Because I feel if we're going to get a Norman Osborn in the MCU proper, they save that for our Norman, just give him the 2002. Plus, it's like, that's the iconic look. Even if you hate it, that's what kids like my generation grew up know that Green Goblin as. They know that look.
The fans are going to be like, if they will, in my opinion, they're going to do the suit. They're going to make small improvements to it, but the whole essence of the suit will still be the same because that's what we as fans, again, it is fan service. They would be very upset. Come on, we know each other. You and I are fans. The people watching and listening are fans. Whether you hate it or like it, you're going to want to see it just because it gives that either quote unquote nostalgia or the thing saying, hey, they're giving us what we want or what we don't want, but just to have that moment to see one more time, Willem in the suit, and for crying out loud, let's get him in the Doc Ock stuff at that point. That was an amazing deleted scene with him fooling around with Alfred Relief. If you have not seen that, that is a good laugh at that point. But no, they keep the suit. And again, for whatever long time it is, I want to see him on the glider. I think they have to not just have him in the suit, but I think we do have to see Willem's face as well.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. One, thank you, Travis, says he loves the hat. Jay says this movie better be 3 hours long. It could, I bet you it's at least going to be 2.5. I bet you it's going to be that because I think that might be the longest Spider-Man. But Joe said Red Skull got sucked into the sky and Infinity War was back in Endgame. Joe, that was because time travel. Remember, Black Widow and Hawkeye went back to when no one had gotten that stone yet. So that's why. And also, I very much want to know what's going to happen with him and Cap one day. But I have a question that later on. I think that's the thing as far as the Goblin suit is there's so many people in the mainstream that think that's what Green Goblin looks like. They've probably not seen the animated show. They've not read a comic. They don't know that he has this like skin tight latex sort of deal. To them, that's Green Goblin. So if they see that comic based version, they might go like, who's that? And then eventually, oh, okay, it's a Goblin with Willem Dafoe. But if you show that Power Rangers aesthetic right away, boom. I remember as a kid, I love that picture so much. My mom had printer ink, obviously, that just goes into a printer, but I was not supposed to use the color. I did. There's this image that I used for the thumbnail for this Marvel Alliance of the regular one. I printed a whole page of that. It just destroyed our ink. And like one clip, I the highest setting, and like because he's that bright green, my mom was not happy with me because that was at a moment where ink cost a lot back in the day, and I used a lot of that ink just for a Green Goblin photo. That just I
Still
love.
costs a lot.
Oh, it does somehow. So I was going to ask you now, as far as the Sinister Six, right? We meant to talk about this last week, but there's a lot going on. So Sinister Six, we've heard some rumblings that this could set up Sinister Six. This could be Sinister Six. It could end with the movie being like, this is our Sinister Six. It's interesting because Sinister Six is something that people love, and I get why they love it. I think this would be the time to do it, but I also would want, like, to me, that is a movie. That is a Spider-Man Sinister Six. It's not just kind of hidden in this, and unless this is maybe somehow the title, I don't know how they're going to work home in the Sinister Six. But how do you feel now about as far as these people? Because we heard, we saw Daniel RPK, the kind of scooper. He put out today that this movie might even have more than 10 villains, and I have a good list from somebody that responded to him below as far as the potential people so we also know about Green Goblin, Doc Ock, now Sandman, Electro, Vulture, which is a clear one, Scorpion. So that's 6 right there. But I want to throw these ones out at you as well, as like we don't know for sure. So Craven, remember when we started the show, was really rumored early on. How do you feel about Craven making his debut in this? Because I don't want his first time appearance, I think, to be in this whole mess, unless he's like the main villain. I feel like you could save him for a solo thing down the line, right? Because I feel like he could get lost in the shuffle for his first time appearance.
Well, I mean, the tale that everyone goes back to with Craven is Craven's Last Hunt. So, yeah. I mean, that's where we started thinking about, and that was my pitch at that point to bring in Craven, was not necessarily Craven's Last Hunt, but the Gauntlet, which leads to a Craven story after the Gauntlet. It's kind of his version of, the Nightfall. It's Spider-Man's version of the Nightfall saga.
That's
so
true.
yeah, I could see. I could see that being a very easy, if you go down that route, base it off that series, you can do it. But, and I just like the idea of Craven as kind of looking at the idea of the hunt of the public. Spider-Man's been outed. It's, can you catch him now that he's outed? But, this movie's as big as it is at this point, everything's on the table. Definitely I could see it, but, the only thing I'm feeling more sure about is the idea that Jamie Foxx's Electro is our main antagonist.
Okay.
That's seen to be ringing true. I don't know, out of that list of who's coming back, like we said, we've heard more. These are more cameos than anything else. So I'm not sure how this ends up. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to them having a bigger role. I'm just saying that from everything we've been hearing, that's what it is.
Well, this is because we had talked about this with Brent too, where he had a good idea of, hey, the quick way to quick shot a Sinister Six is cherry pick past Spider-Man villains, right? Like a Doc Ock, stuff like that. But then we get into what we just talked about before. Is like, okay, if Alfred Molina is Doc Ock, that means he's Doc Ock in the MCU. So it's kind of not a retcon, but it's a whole big change. I want to throw out 2 things. One, this is something that's going around Twitter, so take it as it is. Apparently, the person that plays Jake Gyllenhaal's stand-in in Far From Home is on set for the Spider-Man 3. So, another one that honestly I'd be surprised that came back. Like, I believe it now, but if you would ask me, no, Jake Gyllenhaal, if you read into him, he's not a sequels guy. It took him a lot to sign on this big blockbuster. So, him, I think, is easy because he could be in 1 or 2 scenes, and then you just got to put the fishbowl on him. I wanted to ask you this question because I had seen it floating around and I've seen some like smaller places reporting it, but I just wanted to bring it up as far as, what do you feel about the Ned Leeds Hobgoblin kind of elephant in the room? Because I love Hobgoblin. I love the alternate version of Green Goblin. I love everything they did with that storyline for the most part. There's some wacky stuff that got into it. I love Mark Hamill animated series. My only hangup is just from what I've seen from this actor so far. I don't know if he has that second gear to play this, and maybe it wouldn't be this Ned Leeds, maybe a different Ned Leeds. But how do you feel about that? Because I've seen that float around by multiple people.
Yeah, even Travis Himes was saying it in the chat, how about Hobgoblin first? Then after he's defeated, we find out he was employed by Norman Osborn.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm going to, I'm all about new interpretations, changes of the story at that point. But remember, we have not seen a quote unquote Harry Osborn Green Goblin since the very first Spider-Man. And in this case, because we saw, I know we saw Harry Jr., in Garfield's, but I'm talking like Harry Osborn, true Harry Osborn. At that point, we have not seen him. We have not seen that character, Don Green Goblin, since Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. I think I personally want Green Goblin first. I think Hobgoblin can happen, but I think Green Goblin has to come first. Again, but if it doesn't happen like that, I'm not gonna be. I'll be like at that point. But I think just like Joker and Batman go together at that point, the expectation Green Goblin and Spider-Man have to happen at some point.
How would you feel if they were doing the non-Goblin version of Norman, just like the Dark Avengers version? Would you be more opposed to it then? Like, hey, we're not going to go down the Norman Green Goblin route. We're going to go down the Norman Iron Patriot route. Because I kind of had that in my Patreon thing as far as that's how I kind of see Goblin is I could see the MCU change up as far as we're taking the Dark Avengers route with Norman. And that's why we can do Hobgoblin, because we don't really have a Goblin in the MCU sort of realm as far as like we'll get Dafoe, I guess, so technically he's in there, but I mean like a true MCU one. That's how I could see them going with Goblin first if they don't go the Norma. Or what I'm always scared of, I'm always frightened of, it's very hyperbolic, but I just do not want Ultimate Goblin. I really don't. I don't think the character is awful. I'm not a fan of that. So that's the other thing I've always worried. But that's how I could see Goblin coming in, is if they don't they might not take the Goblin route with Norman, because they're for like a while he was not really rocking Goblin. He kind of they distanced him from that. He's back to that now, but there was, I don't know, I'm not going to say a decade, but I feel at least a good solid 2 to 3 years where he was not Goblin. I think longer than that. So I could see them doing that, but.
Well, it's to the point that you and I always talk about synergy at that point. He's coming back in the comics. You know, building up the idea at that point to get people back and acquainted at that point. I agree. Hobgoblin, Roger Stern introduction of Hobgoblin, that run is just awesome at that point.
It's a wild run.
Yeah.
And it's wild if you go listen to read interviews about the middle of that run and like how they were changing and pivoting. Yeah. Like it sounded like it worked out for the best pretty much, but it sounded like super messy while they were doing it. They kind of at times were like, we have no idea what we're doing. We're going to make it this guy. Well, no, he was under a spell and it's not him. It's like, what?
And you thought the Clone Saga was crazy.
Oh, yeah. Jay just want to put in that he thinks that he could see the acts going first act in Andrew Garfield's movie, and then in Tom Holland's movie, second in Garfield, third's in Maguire. I kind of think it's some amalgamation of that. I kind of think the first act is some troubles happen. The second act is him going through all these universes. And then the third act is all of them coming to him, and they got to kind of Spider-Verse style, boot them back to their respective realms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Ned Leeds, our current Ned at this point, that's going to be a heck of a flip, because because he has been, not saying it can't happen, but I'm just saying there has not been a build to that.
Could it be could it be that same actor, but from a alternate universe play? That's the only way I could see it working. Because I don't see in a one film, especially from the last film, it's not like in Spider-Man 1 where they showed, there's tension between Harry Osborn and Spider-Man. So clearly this is going to end up bad. Spider-Man 2 doubled down that. Spider-Man 3 threw the storyline out the window. Stupid. But they didn't, in Spider-Man and Far From Home, they didn't ever once hint at tension between Ned and Peter, right? Or Ned being a nefarious character. So again, I agree with you. If we were to go down that route, that to me would need build up, unless they do the, alternate universe. I would just throw up that hey, lots of actors get in shape when they're going to do action. And that's one thing we didn't talk about. That guy lost a lot of weight and looked like he got in shape.
He looks amazing. I mean, again, it's just like a night and day. I mean, good for him.
And all it takes is, hey, we need you to play Hobgoblin. Do you think if we hooked up with a trainer, he'd be like, yes, absolutely. And that's all it takes is maybe that's why he lost all that weight, because he did the Chris Pratt Star-Lord thing. I was like, yeah, you're going to put on a skin tight suit and you got to look good. So get on that glider, Ned.
Exactly. And these stories, these scripts don't just suddenly come about. We have been seeing that clip go around when, Tom Holland and Zendaya and and I forget the actor's name that plays Ned. I'm very sorry at that point. I'm so sorry. But and someone probably in chat's gonna get it to me so we can give him credit. But that whole thing when the interview's acting him. So what do you see about the Spider-Verse? And you just see Tom Holland like looking around. He has absolutely no poker face, or he has the most amazing poker face and he's just playing everyone at that point. But yeah, totally. I could see an alternative universe at that point. But I, you and I want to talk about like really quick before we move on to our next topic at that point, like who is on our Sinister Six? And on my list, I have a few that have been in and a few that haven't, just because it's a healthy balance. I think that'll work. And it may not be in this film, but I do think a Sinister Six is going to happen.
Yeah, and I went with, so I didn't go with like comic background as far as like who's the classic, because that's fine, but I tried to go with like more the MCU style and not counting the Sonyverse or not even the multiverse, because I think Brent's right that if they wanted a quick shot, they could, because I just don't think though, because I said if I say it's Green Goblin, Dafoe's Green Goblin, then that means he's sticking around. And I'm kind of with you, like I don't think he's sticking around. So I think the obvious ones are you have Scorpion. I think he will be in this film, and you'll see him set up. You have Vulture, and then again though, like the pieces of the puzzle don't make sense to me because people always throw Vulture in this group, but Vulture, like to me, kind of had like kind of a baby face good guy turn at the end of the movie. Some people have said, oh, he just wants to kill Spider-Man himself. Maybe, but like they kind of show that Vulture kind of has a code in a sense, right? So, but I'll say, okay, somehow he's there. So you got Scorpion, Vulture. I think there's Mysterio in some sort of hologram, or it's not Quentin Beck, it's someone else assuming that identity. It was going to be whoever this villain was going to be in this one, but we don't know who this is. It could be Jamie Foxx. I would probably say Jamie Foxx because I think like you, he could have a bigger role, might stick around. And then in the future, I always went Doc Ock. And I don't know if that's Alfred Molina's, but just Doc Ock could kind of assume that leader role. And then Craven, just because I feel like he's going to be the muscle. But I would truthfully want like a comic accurate Rhino. Not I'm the Rhino in the machine. I want the full on, like he's looking like the Hulk. So that's kind of my six, but it's one of those like my six are completely up in the air every week. They're like, well, this person's back and this person's back. And I know people show art of him versing all these villains. And maybe that's just it. Maybe this is how they do Sinister Six. It's this group of villains from all the universe turned together. And that's how you fight with the Spider-Man. And I would prefer that because yeah, and I would prefer that because I absolutely hate Spider-Man taking on all six for the most part by himself. So with him, with Toby, Andrew, maybe Spider-Gwen, something like that, I'm completely down for it. But what about you?
Yeah, thank you, Clay. He says it's Jacob Batalon.
Thank you, Clay. Thank you. So we can stop calling him the guy who plays Ned.
I'm sure he gets that a lot, and
yeah,
which I feel really bad about. But yeah, on my team. And whoever, I'm just talking about the characters themselves, is Doc Ock, Electro, Vulture. And this one I kind of went back and forth on Mysterio or Chameleon, because I think you have to have someone on the team that has that ability to either, make you see what you're not seeing, or, in the case of Chameleon, become people that aren't necessarily them. Craven, and I'm going to go back and forth in this one, but it's been more typical. Green Goblin or Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin has been more part of the Sinister Six more often than the Green Goblin has.
Even though he's always causing problems for him. Like Hobgoblin is always the wild card. He's that guy in the bank heist that you can never trust. Like he's just going to start shooting random things. You're like, oh no, we shouldn't have brought Hobgoblin around. But Jay says Vulture could be reeled in through threatening his daughter and wife. That's true. I could be down for that. That could be a way to get him in. And then you can have a last minute, like good guy turn, because I think Keaton's another guy that I thought, oh, we'll see him and then we might see him again. But the fact that he supposedly has some cameo Morbius is like, well, I guess he's willing to play ball. And it's just so funny as far as like he's about to go play Batman again and then he might be in this movie or something like that. But that's funny. That's a rumor so far we haven't heard. We've heard tons of rumors and people have speculated Keaton back, but we've not even seen, like I've seen Little Scoopers put out the Mysterio thing. I haven't seen them put out the Keaton thing. Neither's big trades. We're just kind of assuming just because he's around, but maybe he doesn't fit into this movie quite yet. That's the thing, because we don't know what's happening with that Morbius cameo. It's still crazy that that's a thing that's going to happen. And we should have seen Morbius by now. So I don't even know what Morbius's new release date is. I don't even know what Sony's doing in this universe as far as slate dropping and whatnot. I guess we'll find out with Bond. But yeah, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. I was going to ask you this too. So let's say there's a big fight, right? And it's like the three Spider-Man versus all these villains. And I'll go first. I'll let you think. What would be some interactions you'd like to see as far as cross-pollinating? My top three is, for some reason, I really want to see Garfield and Mulaney's Doc Ock. There's just something about it, just because I feel like Garfield's was a bit more of the scientific Spider-Man, so I want to see that. I really desperately want to talk about Michael Keaton. I want to see Michael Keaton and Toby, just because that whole, like I said, like Batman 89, 2002 Spider-Man, just like, these two comic book icons like fighting. And then the one, just because I'm a Goblin fan, but I would love to see Willem Dafoe and Tom Holland Spider-Man face off. Like, because the way I'm thinking about it, it's like the Civil War airport scene where everybody kind of fought at moments. Seeing Dafoe face off against Tom Holland, like literally these two separate generations coming head to head, would be tons of fun. So those are kind of like the ones that are kind of in the blender I'd like to see. Is there any like interactions you'd like to see?
Yeah, I'm just, like you said, just thinking about it. I mean, those are some. You definitely took some of my ideas at that point.
Of course.
It's because again, I like your rationale behind them at that point. I think I would like to see Doc Ock versus Tom Holland. Just, I think I could see a lot of like he could he could say, "Oh, great, another Spider-Man who's got a lot of banter and just won't know how to shut up at that point," because definitely I would switch it at that point to see Green Goblin versus Andrew Garfield. I'd like to just see that, because I think it's a cool thing, because we never saw in that universe Norman at that, but we saw Norman, but he was, the way they were going, Norman was dying at that point. So
Clay just stole what I was gonna say, because he said he'd like to see Dafoe against Garfield for a little PTSD. That's exactly what I was gonna go, because in Toby's mind, he just defeated Green Goblin. That was it. Yeah, it's his friend's dad. It was sad, but whatever. Andrew Garfield, Green Goblin is what killed the love of his life at that time. So that would be very, or if we have Spider-Gwen, oh boy, do we have Spider-Gwen versus Dafoe's Goblin? Now that
would pretty cool fan art of Emma Stone as Spider-Gwen.
That would be fantastic to kind of get the last laugh, because to be honest, again, it's little tears, but I have heard rumors about Dane DeHaan. Dane DeHaan, who I love, is a great actor. I kind of go, I don't know if we need his Goblin, but hey, I guess there's two Goblins. I don't think we need two Goblins, but hey, I guess if you're just getting everybody, go ahead. And know what I'd want to, like, if let's say she's not playing Spider-Gwen somehow, I would actually love to see an interaction with the three women of Spider-Man, of MJ, Mary Jane, and Gwen Stacy. Like, just in a room, just like talking about, like, like we know how to pick them, like just like talking about, like, not specific even about their love, just because they always do that, and females always have to talk about who they love, but just like those characters' personalities kind of clashing and interacting, not clashing in a bad way, but just I would love to see that, because they're all kind of cornerstones of these franchises too, especially the first two. I think Zendaya's is still building because it's been a little longer, but Kirsten Dunst was a big deal. That Stone relationship was a big thing. So I would actually like to see that the three ladies have some sort of interaction, just kind of talking about what their lives are like. So
yeah, that again, we want to see that moment, just like we want to see Spider-Man. That would be kind of cool. It'd be interesting to see how they work it in, but anything's possible. And just to wind it out, Electro going against Tobey Maguire, because we never got to see that kind of fight on screen. So just
yeah, it's just I just, even because I still honestly haven't gotten the fact that Jamie Foxx is coming back as Electro. It's a weird thing, but yeah. And then Jay agreed. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said that's fine. He can take the Tatiana Maslany route, and we could see how well that worked out.
Oh yeah, no, it didn't work out. And then Jay was agreeing with you. He said about the Holland Doc Ock thing. He said just because his line about Bucky and his arms, he might be intrigued about those arms as well. So, and yeah, I'd love to hear Tom Holland's quippiness, because like he's easily to me the most quippy. I think Garfield had some really good ones, but he's the one that's like spell them off a lot. So yeah, anything else to add on this stuff? I'm sure when we come back in January, everybody else will be, all the Aunt Mays will be coming back and everything like that. Storm and Norman's head from Amazing Spider-Man 2 is going to come back from a deleted scene.
This movie's getting better and better.
Let's hope. But I'm getting more and more excited for it. I'll say that, because you know what, as much as I say, oh, this, I'm just excited to see this all transpire, and I cannot wait, and I hope it does actually come out December 2021 one way or another. So we are going to throw to our first ad break. This helps grow the channel, this helps supports the channel, this helps us do everything we do. So we thank you very much for listening to these. We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. We're talking about some rumors now, Chris. Some speculation.
We weren't talking about rumors before.
Well, even more, I say, as far as sourcing, where it comes from, even more so, like, I don't know, but it is people have speculated, and we thought, okay, it's worth bringing up in the let's chalk this in speculation category and see what's up.
Yeah, this is Marvel's Loki. More evidence points to Kang the Conqueror's debut in Tom Hiddleston's series. Now, I don't know if I voiced it. I don't think I did, but throughout the weekend, I definitely was more and more thinking, especially what I know about the TVA and their relationship with Kang. This seemed like an idea that I think would be very plausible. But this comes from the post credits podcast. A lot of they, I call it very quote unquote a little bit misleading headlines at that point, because I will read you the direct quote from it at that point, and they qualify themselves. But the headline makes you think, oh, Jonathan Majors as Kang is going to make his rumored debut in Loki first, not in Ant-Man and the Wasp. What was it, Quantumania? And this comes after Quantumania. The rumor comes from the original way this kind of stemmed from Daniel RPK in February said that Loki would set up the idea of Kang. So the direct quote from the actual show. I've never listened to this podcast before, so I can't say the host name, but I listened to the whole show. They do a good job for that episode I did listen to, but this is what one of the hosts said. He said, well, from what I've been hearing, but I haven't been able to confirm it yet, but I'm pretty confident on that in some way, shape, or form, Jonathan Majors Kang, the Conqueror, who has been confirmed for Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, is going to debut in some form in Loki. I am about 95 to 100% sure that the concept of Kang will be introduced in Loki. I am less confident, like 50%, that Majors will actually make an appearance in Loki. I'm very sure that Loki will be setting up Kang, and that will directly connect to Ant-Man 3. So that's the thing. So, again, the headline makes you think, oh, they're spreading the rumor. They're not. He even said that I can more buy the concept of Kang because, again, in the comics, the TVA is directly tied with Kang. They are trying to bring order to the timeline. They have a huge amount of timeline in the comics to do that, but Kang is obviously going to be encroaching on that at some point. So remember, Loki, this is the Loki from Avengers, the first Avengers. He is not the Loki that has been redeemed. So this is going to be a Loki that's more of an anti-hero by the end of Loki, the TV series. I could definitely see.
Even though everyone always remembered that in the middle of Avengers, he didn't pull out, but he did have a brief moment where he thought about stopping the invasion. So it will show that he will, I think, eventually get back to a hero-esque route, I think, at some point.
Yeah, and so could we see like an image of Jonathan Majors as Kang, or at least an image of Kang himself? I think so. And again, if Majors does make that appearance, I think that would be good. But I think at the very least, I agree with him that to introduce the idea of who Kang is a great idea as it leads into Ant-Man 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp. So
absolutely.
I think that's very, very plausible. And as I said, it would be, we've already got Majors confirmed that he's going to be in Ant-Man 3, but it would be a cool kind of way at that point. I mean, again, it's going to be, we talked about it before, how Kang is such a huge, is a major villain. And so a good way to prep the audience for it is to show the TVA, and maybe Loki is possibly trying to maybe fix things that are that Kang is ruining. So he hears of him and the things that he's done. I don't know.
So yeah, I want to show Jay and Jay. He was kind of similar as far as you or they were, as far as I think Kang would be one of the TVA's most wanted, who they can never seem to catch, obviously because he's bigger knowledge of the timeline to them, and kind of what you're talking about as far as multiple ways you could tie him in. I think this is kind of I don't want to try and be like, oh, I knew this, and same thing, we're not showing me that, but I just feel like the second we heard that Loki was dealing with time travel or time variance, and then you have Kang introduced, anytime I hear any MCU project is dealing with time, I'm going to think Kang is probably involved now because he just has such a lineage of that in comic books. But the thing is, we always got to think about the mainstream. The mainstream, just like Thanos, they don't know who Kang is. He's not a Magneto. He's not a Doctor Doom. He is somebody that you do need to maybe lay some breadcrumbs. And I always thought, oh, Ant-Man 3 is that place to do it. It probably still is, but it's not going to hurt if you give a mention or even just see an image of him in Loki. I think that what I think is his aura, his presence will be felt in the Loki show, but we won't see him until the end credits of the season finale of the episode. I think that's how it's going to happen. Is like that's how you end the season with a big stinger, post credit scene, and it's Kang, and oh, what's this guy? And then you see, because if the mainstream audience sees Kang in the TV show, gets interested, and then they see him in the trailers for Ant-Man and the Wasp, they go, oh, these connect. I know that character a little bit, kind of like Thanos. Okay, I'm in. So I do think that is going to happen. So I told this to Chris. I mean, him were talking this privately. I've created a Charlie Day sort of like chart as far as my theory. As far as we've talked about these
for those of you that are not watching in the video at that point, as soon as you do his Travis's whole like whatever he's put on has lit up at this point. Like he's opened the magical suitcase from Pulp Fiction and the gold has come out. Instead, he's just like a light has come across Travis's.
I have, but it's Kevin Feige's brain. That's what it is. I'm peering into it. So you and I had always talked about that. There's 2 tracks of the MCU, right? We talked about like obviously Falcon, Winter Soldier, Black Widow. They're on this one track, and Loki, Spider-Man, and WandaVision on another track. What I'm going to propose is I think there's a 3rd track now, and this is the thing. So I have 3 tiers. I have our Earthbound heroes, and I don't know what we're going to do about them, but this is what they are. So the shows are the characters that fall in them is Hawkeye, Falcon, Winter Soldier, Moon Knight, She-Hulk. As of right now, all relatively heroes are like dealing with their apprentice, dealing with lawyers, dealing with a guy with, split personality, all stuff that's still human-based, kind of not world-ending, right? And then you have the multiverse tier, which is Spider-Man 3, WandaVision, and Doctor Strange. And then you have the time travel quantum tier, which is Ant-Man, Fantastic Four, and Loki. Now, I was talking about to you this privately as far as Loki is the bridge. It's funny because I think they're trying to downplay this now, but the original Comic-Con, Feige did say WandaVision and Loki were connected to Doctor Strange. They didn't say that this time. So I feel like they're kind of like, maybe we want to leave that as a surprise. So I've always said, okay, eventually there's these 3 separate tracks, but how are they all going to interlink? Because we know that'll happen. Phase 1 to 3, the Infinity Saga, we had the stones. So even someone like Hawkeye had an experience with the stone because he met Vision, right? Or the twin. So even the most earthbound people, but as of right now, we don't see no reason for Kang to be popping up in Falcon Winter Soldier. So it's like, what will combine them? I don't know. But with the multiverse and time travel tier, that's Loki because he's doing both almost, right? He's going through time, but also the multiverse. So those get linked up. The earthbound people, I don't know. So I was going to hit you with these 3 projects / films and ask you where you think they line up. Where do you think Thor is? Because Thor, as of right now, it's just dealing with, Jane Foster. But how do you think that interlinks with our story eventually?
Tell me the 3. What were the 3 titles of the track? We got the multiverse,
the Earthbound, the multiverse, and the time travel or / quantum, like that kind of. Because I feel like Fantastic Four, they deal with the quantum realm. Ant-Man's Quantumania, so I feel like they're kind of in this kind of pocket,
I could see Thor being more multiverse at that point. I don't see time travel with Thor. At least, yes, I know Loki is time travel, but because.
So I have 2 things. I think Loki could be the bridge because I've always told you.
Yeah.
I still think he finds a way to the main continuity, and that's how you bring him. But my second thing is stealing from Brent, who's in the chat. He's proposing a 4th tier. Brent, you need to name it in the chat, or maybe it's just the space tier. But he said, because I'm not thinking about Guardians, I was going to bring up about Guardians and Thor. They may be on their separate track as well as doing something else, because even then, maybe Fantastic Four is more this space tier, right? So Brent's right. It could be that. I'll hit you with this one, Chris, because I was trying to think about this. I think Armored Wars, Ironheart, those are more the Earthbound as far as people dealing with the Earth problems, right? Where does Secret Invasion and Captain Marvel 2 fit in this? Because for a while, I always thought there was going to be a big crossover event. Apparently, we're getting like 3 big mini crossover events. But like, where do they fit? Because if they're dealing with Skrulls, I'm wondering if those somehow feed into the Earthbound, like the She-Hulk, the Moon Knight, somehow if that's kind of their story. I don't think Moon Knight's dealing with Skrulls, but let's say he just like gets mixed up and he's like, yeah, I'm here to fight some alien.
We're going to talk about the event that happened in New York.
Yeah, like whatever it may be. But like, how does Secret Invasion and Captain Marvel as of right now? Because it's tough because I don't know how they fit, but then if they got Skrulls, those connect to Fantastic Four. So they connect to Fantastic Four. Are they in the time travel / quantum realm? I told you it was a Charlie Day type.
No, it is. It's just you bring up the point. It's just certain things we see connections on, other things it's harder to, because like you said, we find the idea of the stones at that point. The first couple of Avengers, the first event movies leading towards the Avengers, we kind of get somewhat the idea of the stones, but not really, with the
Yeah.
Tesseract and things like that. But once we as fans saw Thanos, we knew where we were heading with this at this point. So I think, Secret Invasion, like you're saying, it fits into obviously Captain Marvel, but it also fits into this idea of who can you trust on the ground, because that was a big tagline. Who can you trust?
Mm-hmm.
Who is who they say they are? And that was a big thing. Who has been a double agent this entire time? Who has been
Oh,
hiding in the midst? That brings up a whole other group of questions. I do like the idea, Brent, of the idea of space, because that's what originally, and I don't think it's too still far off, but originally that's what this next part of Marvel was supposed to be, according to Feige, was supposed to be a very focused on the cosmic and space. Not saying they're not still doing that, but I think it's now with this multiverse angle, I think that brings in a new dynamic into the mix.
yeah. Jay was kind of saying the same thing as far as Thor is on a separate thing. Then Jane gets involved in the Earthbound situation. And by Earthbound, he means Skrull takeover. And that could be it. And maybe that's what Hawkeye's dealing with, Falcon and stuff like that, because we still are the working assumption that Thunderbolts is somehow in there. And maybe that's how the Thunderbolts get created, as far as they want to take down these Skrulls. I don't know what the deal is, but what was I gonna ask next? Oh, so the next thing, Black Panther 2, obviously going through lots of changes. This is the only one that I legitimately feel that it's so separate to itself, because if you look at Black Panther 1, Civil War is the connection point, but Black Panther, that movie, really has no connection to the MCU until they do the end credit thing of like, oh, here's Bucky and he's hanging out here. They made their own separate thing. And I think too, not just because the passing Jack Bowen, I just think that it'll connect because they'll always need Wakanda or they want to get them involved. But I think it's still going to be almost as close to a solo adventure as possible. So I could kind of just see them being yeah, sure, Earthbound, but kind of outlier as far as just somehow Wakanda gets involved and whoever the new Black Panther is or the new lead is at gets involved somehow. That's the way. I don't think Black Panther as right now fits into any of these boxes particularly.
I think not directly. I think you're right. I think with what's going on and now the movie shifting focus at that point of who is going to be the new Black Panther and what that kind of focus is, I think that's going to be kind of the movie within itself. I think you're right. It is a more of a solo outing, but an end credit scene or something towards the end, a reference point. Because again, all these movies had some sort of reference point leading towards something, because we could say, "See, we're connected."
Yeah. Well, because no, I'll shout him out on SES. Nathan brought up a good point that he says, like, we have all these little breadcrumbs of details and characters. It's just how they all go together, right? And it'll be easy once we get to phase 5 or 6. Go, oh, this all makes sense now. But at the beginning, it's like we see all these pieces. We do know they go together. It's not like what is Marvel doing? It's just, okay, how are we doing it? And Jay says that he thinks that the Armor Wars will be a Skrull piece. Yeah, that makes sense to me, more Earthbound and everything like that. And Brent says, I'm looking like Chris Evans from Knives Out. Brent, that's why I bought the sweater, legitimately just to get that. And then Joshua Perez asked, would be cool if the Skrulls kept Fantastic Four hostage and they took their place. Would be a cool twist for not seeing them. That'd be a very
that would be
that'd be a very loaded backstory. And then he also put up, do you guys think What If will have importance and a greater impact on the MCU? Maybe the Watchers officially have a bigger role. Yes and no. Watchers officially a bigger role. I could see down the line. What If? No. I think they want to keep that their own thing. I think they want to have, because I think for once that's the show where Kevin Feige gets to relax and just be like, let's just have some fun and make some good stories. Where everything is always like the Charlie Day, like how does this? I think it is that, and I also want to stay that. I want What If to go on for 5-10 years and always just be different stories. I want them to even dabble in, if they wanted to, like the What If of the X-Men Fox universe or something like that, like just go crazy with their What If. So I think it's going to stay separate. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I do. That's the one I'm excited for, because that series can have so many different directions. Yes, right now in its first season, they're leaning on to the movies and changing one thing for each of them. Because I think, again, from what I at least originally understood about it, there's going to be 20 to 20, one for each movie at that point. So I think the Watcher is definitely someone that you can definitely bring in within Fantastic Four, Guardians, Captain Marvel at that point. It's definitely, I think, more so in the idea of Guardians and Fantastic Four. So could it be right? Would I love it to be continue to be voiced by Jeffrey Wright? Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
That his voice is just perfect for it.
And
So
it
that
shouldn't be
is
a problem. Like even if like in MCU stuff, because Brent talked up like, oh, would we see him live action and could you like have scenes with him and Reed Richards stuff like that? Like I think yes, because it's just the Bradley Cooper route. I don't expect Jeffrey Wright to be there in a mocap suit acting as a watcher. I expect the same thing that Bradley Cooper comes in for a couple days, records his rocket lines, and is out.
can we call him Trash Panda?
Sure, whoever you want to call him, Bradley Cooper gets a fat check for 2 days of work, and that's the thing where it's like Jeffrey Wright, who's already been a great voice. I think you will see it, but I do think again, people are going to probably roll their eyes and be like, "Oh, Trav's Endgame happened." There's still levels of weirdness, and watchers, they are another step up to. They introduce some Guardians, sure, but to know what they are and to really get into they are, it's weird. It's the same way as far as like WandaVision. I still think is a step up to weirdness that I think some mainstream people will still go like, "Oh, this is not what I was expecting. I was expecting an action adventure and this weird like sitcom not like." So I think there's levels of weirdness and watchers. I think it's coming, but I don't think I think within these the phase 4 to 6, yes, but I don't think in phase 4 still. I still think they are gonna they still introduce time travel and now they gotta get us used to multiverse. So they're still working on the other stuff too, but we're getting weird. Like that's the whole MCU's phase 4 is just we're getting weird. That's what it is. The Spider-Man, Loki, WandaVision, and I'm here. I dig it.
Yeah, but that's the thing I kind of said that, for a while now, I've said this over and over again that this is Marvel has proven they had to go quote unquote the safe standard round. I put that in quotes
Mhm.
to establish themselves that see we can do your superhero movies, make some twists. You enjoyed at that point. Now we're gonna see how far we can stretch this. Like you said, let's get weird. Let's start kind of stretching our muscles because again, that is the thing. People are going to show up to superhero movies, but Feige's big thing is I want them to see how different we can be. Each one of these shows or movies has their own spin on it, has their own genre type. And so that's what he's taking the old genre types of movies and putting them into giving them the characters and stories that where it fits.
I agree, and that's the thing where if you look at the movies, maybe Eternals, which Josh Perez has a good question. I forgot Eternals, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow. I'll put them in my tiers in a second, but if you look at Eternals, that could be a little weird. And I think Spider-Man 3 is going to get crazy because we're in a bunch of Spider-Man. But if you look at the other movies so far, they're not getting really weird. They're still saving the, what are big blockbusters that bring in the mainstream, that like are appointment viewing in quotations. Those are pretty straightforward. It's Disney Plus where it's getting weird because I think it's good to experiment, but also if they fail, it's not as big as a failure. It's not a huge box office thing. And I think that's the thing where it's safer to do these risks. And I think you kind of get a little bit of everything because I don't think like Black Widow is like a big risk. I don't think Thor: Love and Thunder is a big risk. I think Eternals isn't a big risk, but it's risky. And Spider-Man 3, I would say, yeah, the plot's risky, but you put those stars in a movie, it's going to be successful. Even if it's the worst Spider-Man movie ever made, it's going to make a bunch of money because people just want to see the three Spider-Men swinging together,
Yeah, it's I think the idea that's where I've said for a while now I've really enjoyed the idea of Star Wars really leaning hard into the streaming and the shows at that point because again it's some of the best stories came out of the novels and the comics at that point that sometimes are you don't necessarily do it all justice putting it into a 1-2 hour movie. And yes, you could do a saga and a trilogy at that point. But I think this is where Marvel and even now to the in same extent DC going to HBO Max, these are where you could start telling the stories that may not get the big box office draw, but you can build these characters and maybe lead to a solo movie and or a team movie that they're going to really showcase more.
And I still think like I always preference this. I talk about the mainstream. I always use my mom an example, but I always give DC a lot of credit. The two things I do think that it's the same way as the crossover, right? When people say they copy each other, they do. The reason is yes, Justice League became a mess. The reason it became a mess is because Warner Bros. Like, look at the Avengers, let's do that, and lots of other places, lots of other movies like the Monster Universe tried the connected universe thing, right? It didn't really work out, but that was the inspiration. The same way I feel like DC inspired Marvel and other people as far as with the Flash, with Ezra Miller being in that episode, and Joker. I love Joker, so I don't bias, but I think that movie, that is a that movie should not have made $1 billion. It really shouldn't have, but it did. And I remember my mom doesn't see every comic movie, but she wanted to see that. I said, I don't know if you're going to like it, but it was the buzz. It was something that was different. And that's the thing where different can sometimes be good. Yeah, at first it might be, oh, this is not what I'm used to. But if you give it time and you kind of feed the audience, that's why in Endgame, we did do time travel in the MCU. But guess what? It took 23 movies with some build up to it. It wasn't just, here we go, we're time travel, let's go. So that's where it's, and I understand people's worry as far as Spider-Man 3, as far as adding all this in really quick, could that be an issue? I think if they're just cameos, not really. But Josh Perez said, where does Black Widow, Eternals, and I'll throw in Shang-Chi as well, fit in your 4-tier thing? Shang-Chi is Earthbound, clearly. I just feel like kind of his journey. Black Widow, same thing, Earthbound as well. She's going to die in Sepulena. Eternals has to be the space one. That has to be the, maybe somehow dealing with quantum realm. But if Brent is right with this whole Guardians, Thor kind of space route, Eternals is a perfect fit right there. Like, they are literally in space, but I just feel like we'll delve a lot into that. So they have connections to Thanos, which is, I kind of consider space as well. So that's where I would put them right now.
Yeah, it's that's where it would fit the best.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, let me know what you think about this phase, these tiers. I'm going to be referring them as in the future and whatnot. But yeah, I'm looking very forward. And it's just been so much fun of watching these trailers. I've watched them multiple times, but just even seeing like the Loki one of people's theories and frame pauses and stuff. And I love that we're getting like new trailers and just stuff to talk about finally, and it's good. We had a great time during COVID, but we have shows actually coming out, Chris, next year, like WandaVision. And it's just nice to see, like, it does feel MCU like was a little rejuvenated after last week. Not that Needed was on life support, but it's just like so many delays and so many, when is this coming out? We don't know, but it's just like that ramp out of, like, I saw Discussing Film tweet out today of WandaVision is 1 month away. And that's crazy to think about, but it is actually 1 month away. So it's fun getting excited for this stuff again. And then Jay said, I think you're going weird on Disney Plus because it's easier for consumer a 6-hour story rather than a hour to 2-hour movie. Yeah, I agree. And then the next big thing, Disney Plus trailer featuring new characters like Miss Marvel. Yeah, I agree with that too. I think you'll get big premieres in Disney Plus, and I think Disney Plus just does, like you were talking about Star Wars, affords them to be a little riskier, a little weirder, and hey, I don't think that Mandalorian's that risky, but either way, it's something new, and it worked out tenfold. It's doing very well for them, and I think most of these Marvel shows will do well for them too.
Yeah, definitely. So, but yeah, those are our kind of main topics at that point. Do want to head into news and
yeah, I'll throw the other ad break right here, and then we'll get into the like kind of more quick fire ones. But yeah, this is just your second ad break. We thank you as always for listening, and we will be right back. And we're back. Let's see. This time the last story, but what was I gonna say? Perez says one of the biggest questions: how is Miss Marvel going to get her name? I mean, since MCU skipped over Cara Danville's Miss Marvel phase, will they try and make her Inhuman retcon it? I think it's just going to be like, I look up to Captain Marvel. I'm going to take on the term Miss Marvel. I think Perez is going to be very, very very easy. Like, they're just like, it's going to be nothing. It's going to be like, you used to be Captain Marvel. No, I think it's going to be like, I'm going to take on this name as like a moniker to tribute to her and everything like that. And yeah, so.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we've got some movement on the slate because COVID.
Always, yeah.
I did notice that this at least this is coming from the direct, looking at what the official programming sheet. They base this off of the official programming sheet of the Disney investors call from last week. At that point, and there were some shifts at that point. Some of these have no specific dates, and it is missing Spider-Man in where it fits. But here's a current rundown as they listed. And I'll put in Spider-Man where it should go based on everything we've been hearing. We've got Black Widow in May 7th of next year. Shang-Chi, I believe that's how Feige pronounced it at that point. Because
I think you're right.
Yeah. And The Legend of the Ten Rings in June. Eternals, November. Spider-Man 3 has to be before Doctor Strange. So Doctor Strange is slated for March 25th of 2022.
Yeah, and Spider-Man's is December right now. The working day is December 2021. So a year from now.
Yeah. So again, that would be 1 month separating them and Eternals. If not, it's a Christmas Day release. So that's going to be pretty close. And I'm with you. I think a lot of these are still going to shift a little bit.
No Christmas Day, please. Wonder Woman can get away with it this time because COVID, but please don't release movies on Christmas Day. It's just a hassle for everybody, especially the podcaster life, you know?
Yes, exactly, because our families are going to so love us.
Yeah, everyone
um,
gather around.
Yep. Thor Love and Thunder, May of 2022. Black Panther 2, July of 2022. Blade is undated. Captain Marvel 2, November 11th, 2022. So figure out where Blade can fit in. That sounds like an August. That sounds like an August and or again, I know we could say October, but that's again a month away from Captain Marvel 2, where it's currently slated. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, undated. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, 2023, and Fantastic Four, undated. That sounds like another 2023 movie.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the only two things I have to add in here, I agree with everybody. We talked about it on MA that let's get to Black Widow and then see the rest of these dates. You know, like I'm not quoting any of these. I'm not thinking about, oh, this is when it's coming out. So that's my first point. My second point, I talked to you, Brent, about this as far as let's say everything's fine, right? Everything stays, world is semi-normal, Black Widow releases in theater, Disney Plus, the slate stays the way it is. I don't understand what's going on with Blade because you brought a point to me of, yeah, they might have not announced, you know, a writer or director. They could have somebody, but they haven't announced it. That's true. They didn't with Oscar Isaac, and then a bunch of scoopers after the presentation were all like, no, he's playing Moon Knight. They just maybe haven't signed the contract, right? So that's fair. That's why you don't put that out because you don't want to put that out and then all of a sudden Oscar Isaac drops out and it's like, that's embarrassing. So maybe he hasn't signed the dotted line. It's just that I guess I could see Blade being the August 8 because they put Guardians there, and I feel like they put movies there that are, hey, this is, you know, it could be big, but we don't know. Like, we don't know if it's a guaranteed hit because August used to be a kind of dump movies. August and January used to be for the studios of like, we don't believe in this movie, just put in August or January because nothing else is out then. It's not that anymore, but it still is that like, oh, we're trying here. So I'd have to go August. I feel like if it is August, you should flip them and you have Captain Marvel go first and then Blade. Maybe there's some continuity reason. I don't see why there's gonna be any reason why Blade has to go before Captain Marvel. I really don't. But maybe hey, that's Kevin Feige's brain. I just think Blade is just that to me is it's the same way they were so smart to put Black Panther in February, Black History Month. Blade is a Halloween October movie. The same way Joker was not a, you know, another shout at Joker. It's not a horror movie per se, but it is a rated R tension, scary at times type of movie that fit in that October, oh, it's scary and Halloween vibe. That's what Blade should be. It's the same reason why Doctor Strange, it didn't come out in October, but it came out in November, the first one, kind of just after Halloween, kind of had that fall, same thing like, oh, a little spooky. To me, Captain Marvel November is a weird fit, but hey, if they want to do Blade, then I don't think that's going to happen. I think Blade's going to get punted to the next year unless we hear something in the next few weeks or months. But I still feel like they would have said, I don't know, they would have at least had a writer or director for that investors call. Maybe it's just really tough to find somebody that's linking out with their vision. It's not been that long since they announced it, but I think that at least the Blade portion will change.
Yeah, and Jay brings up, you know, he brings up a good point that we didn't get to see any kind of sneak peek of Eternals. Asking why do they think that? I think right now they're still working on how to market that movie.
No one wants it. No, I'm joking.
I don't think anyone doesn't want it, but I mean, this is another. I mean, Shang-Chi is another one that you do not have a brand name like it's a Guardians problem. And again, not saying that again, Guardians proved you don't have to have a brand name, but again, they're figuring out how to market this. Yeah, they better get on it pretty soon. But again, they have time. This is not releasing until November. I think I don't think it's the priority yet to start marketing it. I think that a lot of stuff has come out. I think a lot of like secret images have come out, but I think they're still working on the marketing for this and how to sell it.
But the other thing I'd counter with is we didn't see anything movie related teasers at the investors call, right? It was all Disney Plus stuff.
No, you're right, because and that's where they said their focus was going to be for it, because again, the movie's as Feige had said, it's a well-oiled machine. It takes care of itself. So to the point, they don't have to do it yet. They know they basically are going to say it's a Marvel movie. We know you're going to see it. We're going to show it to you when it's ready.
Yeah, like I said, I was just having some fun and saying no one wants it. I just say that in the sense of they really have to. I think out
Stop
of
it.
all of them, I think that's the one that they have to really market the most. It's not even like Guardians where it's just like that was unknown. This one just like it is one of those kind of levels of weird again, where it's like, okay, are people going to buy
We're
in this the
talking
same?
pure. We're going hard Jack Kirby at this
Yeah,
point.
and that's the same thing for me. It's far tough for me to even get excited for that one, to be honest. But and then also Jay point out that hey, is Oscar Isaac's not going to be Moon Knight because Metal Gear Solid. I don't think so, just because there's so many stars that do multiple projects. Metal Gear Solid will be a movie, this be a TV show. That could have something to do with it. That could just have something to do with scheduling. But I still think I trust Deadline and the fact that many scoopers came out after and still kind of doubled down and said, no, it's still happening after. I still trust it. Anything can fall through. Like I've again, third mention of Joker. Alec Baldwin was cast as Thomas Wayne for a day by Variety. And then the next day he came and said, that's not real. So big scoopers can't get it wrong. It happens. But I just think that I personally don't. If it doesn't happen, I don't think it's because Metal Gear Solid. Because Metal Gear Solid, he can do multiple things. We're just talking about like many people. Like, look, Michael Keaton going to be Batman and the Vulture maybe again one day and stuff like that. So I think it would be something else, maybe price wise instead of character wise. And I also do think, because yeah, he wanted to play Metal Gear Solid, but I also think he's a smart guy and his agent's a smart guy. As far as you may want to play Snake, but you might want to get in the MCU because that is a well that will never end.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll see what this is. I'm with you, Travis. We're gonna see a little more shifting, but I'm confident we will not see huge shifts. I think we'll see movements of a month or two or something move that's towards the end. Like say that something's like slated at the end of a year. I could see that moving to the beginning of the following year. That's not a
Mhm.
huge shift in my eyes.
I hope. I hope.
Yeah. So, all right, our next story, we have a returning MCU players coming back. Jamie Alexander is set to return in Marvel's Thor 4 and possibly Loki Disney Plus show. This is Deadline is reporting that Jamie Alexander will be returning to the MCU, reprising her role as Lady Sif in 2022's Thor Love and Thunder. Deadline insiders also believe that she may be in for a guest spot in the Disney Plus Loki show premiering in May. Lady Sif has not been seen since 2013's Thor: The Dark World, although Jamie Alexander did bring the role to season 1 and 2 of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. With her absence in Thor Ragnarok due to scheduling conflicts with the show, I believe it was Blindside. I think that has unfortunately been canceled, so that
Mm.
does free her up a bit. Um, and so now it would be excellent to see her back. I think she did a great job. And again, why not put her in Loki even for a guest spot? I think that could definitely fit in.
Yeah, I like her enough. It's not as he's not as bad as this, but I kind of put her in the Don Cheadle route where she's good, but I've not had enough of her character to really gleam onto it. Like I know there's lots of people like, oh,
I
she was in
agree.
Infinity War, she was in Endgame. I didn't miss her, and that wasn't anything to do with the character, the actress. It's just I've not had enough to invest in her. They've given her a few moments in Thor and the Dark World, but yeah, so I'm not opposed to her coming back. I just kind of I need to see a bit more of that character. Loki makes a lot of sense. Thor Love and Thunder potentially, but I just don't know where she fits in right now because I feel like Jane's kind of that love interest and you already got Valkyrie. So maybe she's there. Maybe she's another part of the squad. But Loki to me makes sense. Even if it's not present day Sif, it could be a different multiverse Sif and everything like that. So yeah, I'm intrigued and I do want to see more. And I guess she's lucky she didn't get just destroyed like the Warriors 3 in Thor Ragnarok, who just got, hey, you guys really hated Dark World? Well, here you go. Oh, shing. We get rid of everybody. Now you go play Shazam.
Yes, exactly. So, so all right. This one I dropped last second because it was an interesting scoop. There's not too much there, but it's going to be like projects that weren't really discussed at all. This comes from
Mhm.
Murphy's Multiverse. New scoop from Charles Murphy reveals that Marvel Studios is currently developing a project centered around the classic Marvel character Nomad. Marvel Studios recently trademarked the phrase Marvel Studios Nomad for merchandise goods, along with the terms of other new projects that were announced in last week's presentation. But again, it was not ever brought up whatsoever in any shape or form. For those of you unfamiliar, Nomad was kind of introduced in Captain America number 180. Steve Rogers changed his look and took on the mantle of Nomad after learning that the U.S. government to which he was devoted his life to, was being run by the Secret Empire. And a version of this, even though not named, he basically kind of was donning that idea in Avengers Infinity
Yeah.
War, the way he looks. So that was kind of our tip of the hat to the Nomad character. Lots of different characters have taken on the Nomad personality, including Jack Monroe. Went on to play it and also lead his own solo title and join the Thunderbolts. So this could be a kind of quote unquote spin-off show from Falcon and Winter Soldier. My pick is it could be John Walker if he doesn't work out too well as U.S. agent. Would they find what I at least know about the U.S. agent character at that point, or that character could continue as U.S. agent, and we could see Bucky take on the Nomad persona.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier in our chat, and you said Bucky. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense because I jumped to U.S. agent right away because I don't think he is, just from the vibes I've gotten from things they've said, I don't think he's going to be so villainous in the show that he can't come back, something like that. I think he'll be an antagonist, maybe villainous then to see his ways, but you never know. Yeah, it's interesting because I remember after Civil War, everyone like Boss Logic was going nuts. Everybody just making their photoshops of, oh, he's gonna be Nomad. And then when, like you said, you got the darker metal and everything like that, and the beard, you're like, he's Nomad. So I always thought, oh, that was it. That was there's some things in comic books they just don't do in movies or TV shows, and they just do a little nod to, and that's what I thought that was. The same way in Dark Knight Rises, where it's like it's kind like it's not really Nightfall, but they break Batman's back to be like, hey, we're not doing that whole storyline, but here's just like a nugget from that story. And that's why I thought Nomad and Infinity were like, here's a nugget. You're never going to get Nomad. But it makes sense as far as two reasons. One, they could be copyrighted just because it's, hey, just in case we do it, and we've talked about it, let's do it. We may never see this. This happens all the times with this. But the other thing with it being trademarked is, you remember a long time ago, I think it's one of our like second or third episodes, there was like rumblings of like Mini Scooper saying that, there's plans for a Falcon and Winter Soldier second season, but it might not be called Falcon and Winter Soldier. And
that's what I was going to get to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what you hit. I think you were completely on the money. My mind was, I thought it was going to be called Thunderbolts or something, because my vision is kind of like the comics, Bucky leading the Thunderbolts, but him being Nomad, because I could see Sam going off in the movies as Captain America and him sticking back as Nomad, because I'm sure he doesn't want to be called the Winter Soldier anymore, the man who killed Tony Stark's parents and a bunch of other innocent people. I'm sure he doesn't want to be running around with that persona. So it would almost be this like kind of great serendipity, beautiful moment of like Falcon retiring that name and then becoming Captain America, and him retiring Winter Soldier, becoming Nomad. So I think you're right on the money with that, and I hope it happens.
Yeah, it'll be good, and so it'll give, because I really do think Sebastian Stan has done an awesome job playing Bucky, and I'm agreeing that he goes off into the sunset in the sense of not continuing on with that show, but I don't see him being killed off. I think that character has a lot more stories to tell, and I think if we can't have, he is right now, and I say loosely, our Punisher in the MCU.
Yeah. The closest,
and I put that very, very loosely. Again, completely different.
He is that like, we can't trust him. He's off, but they've made it different, almost family friendly, where it's like, oh, it's because there's something wrong with him machine wise, not because Frank Castle's choosing to be a murderous person. I get what you mean. They have that similar correlation.
And Brent, you're white. He was called, the White Wolf at that point.
Brent, you're white. Take it to the bank.
You're white. You're white. I mean, you're right or what? But yeah, I think that's the most logical. But like, you're right. This may just be trademarking for just in case, and they do the same thing with websites. So. This was also an interesting drop today, but not much has come out of it, nor has Disney gone into more details outside of what they said. Marvel Studios Legends Disney Plus streaming show premieres January 8th. This was not part of the Disney call last week. This was just a sudden drop today in a tweet.
Like they forgot about it.
Yeah, a new series that revisits some of the most iconic moments from the MCU, one character at a time. The first 2 episodes will focus on Wanda and Vision, starting on January 8th. So what this says to me is, if they're focusing on characters and famous moments, well, they're focusing on Wanda and Vision. Why would that be? Again, this sounds like a show that is just saying, hey, we haven't put something out there in a year, just in case you haven't decided to access your your Marvel side of Disney Plus, let's do your quick version of what's been going on with these characters so you can kind of remember at before we premiere the new show on January 15th. I could see this kind of doing something like that.
Yeah, I don't have much to add because when you said that, that was exactly where my head was going. This is going to be the equivalent of YouTubers when they do your crash course on, The
Yep.
Boys season 1. Get caught up with Breaking Bad. I think it's gonna be that. It's gonna be like when you're in the theater, funny enough, when you're sitting there before and you'd be watching a movie and there'd be like, let's say, WandaVision coming whatever this fall. And then it's like Paul Bettany and Wanda or Scarlet Witch just dropping like the most generic, like, well, Wanda's been through a lot. And this is gonna take her to some really weird places. And then they show like clips and you're like, oh, I learned nothing, but you still tuned in like an idiot, hoping they'd give you something. I think they might still give you like even a bit more of a nugget with this, but I agree with you. It's purely to catch people up and just to promote the show even more. I would like to be surprised, but the other thing is they're doing a gallery for this, right? So everything I would want out of the gallery or what I'd want out of this.
Gallery for WandaVision, yeah, they will.
Yeah. So everything I would want out of this is going to go to gallery. I want the whole episode dedicated to Elizabeth Olsen talking about when she got casted to now, like just that whole generation of going from just kind of a more minor character to getting this whole show. That's what I would want this Legend show. But if we're getting a gallery, then that's it's kind of no point. We're gonna get that later on, so I'll check it out. But if it's kind of like just a fluff piece, it's one that okay, I'll watch for 2 minutes, and okay, this isn't for me. I'll tell my mom to watch. If she's like, "What's this show with the robot and the kids?" I remember him. Then I'll go, okay, watch this, and you'll know everything. She's seen like the bigger ones, but I don't know if she's seen them all. If not, she's seen them once. Same thing like my sister. Like, hey, you really want to watch WandaVision? Watch this like 10-15 minute whatever, and I'll catch you all up. That's what I agree with you that I think it would be, but we'll see.
Yep. Brent says in chat, do you think that they will bring up some comic history at all or focus on MCU? I think they have to be careful with how much comics history they do. We don't have a how long these episodes are. We don't have a full count of how many episodes this is going to be. I'm just reading between the lines in this one. So if they are going to do comics, they're probably going to be very careful because they don't want to totally tip their hand. So
this show's inspired by House of M, where Wanda
Wanda becomes the most dangerous thing ever we have ever seen.
You get that in gallery. You get that after when we've seen the show. I think before they would talk about comics just like very loosely of like, oh, it was kind of inspired by this art or kind of, I think I agree with you 100%. The galleries when they tackle, we took inspiration. If Greg's right, it's whole House of M. We took that storyline, thought, how could we adapt it to the MCU? They're not going to tip their hand. I think even if us smart dweebs know, like, oh, I think I've figured what's going on, they don't want to tell us 100%. Hey, you figured out that we're doing Tom King's Wanda and start, whatever. So yeah, I agree with you on the comics.
But yeah, so we'll have to see. Again, I still got to finish up 616. But again, I got 2 weeks off, so I've got to work that in somehow. But yeah, so our last two news stories are castings going on for Miss Marvel. Acknowledge the elephant in the room. There were some other castings that were done before Miss Marvel. We did have that on a previous show on our rundown. We took it off because there has been some controversy behind some of the supposed cast, and we're just not going to, just discuss it because we're not going to win that discussion.
Yeah, and it's not us saying that we are for or against it. Me and Chris were just like, we both don't know enough about the situation to talk about this enough. And that was in the middle of Investors Week, and we weren't going to look it up and kind of derail the show. So I think it's something that we may talk about in the future, but it's something that I had seen those tweets, but I was like, I don't know about this, and this, and I don't mind if you follow me on Twitter or Geekverse, you know I don't mind commenting on political stuff, but I want to be informed.
Exactly. But these were new castings, at least that have come out separate from that, and it seemed again some interesting kind of comic dynamics with it. So, Aramis Knight joins the cast, Miss Marvel as Red Dagger. He has joined the cast in the upcoming show. Who is best known for his role in MK and AMC's Into the Badlands, will reportedly portray Kareem, aka Red Dagger, an unpowered costume vigilante Miss Marvel meets when she visits her family in Pakistan. So we get a little bit of, we know where that show's going to be headed at one point.
Mhm.
With Knight, whose father is of Pakistani descent, taking on the role of Kareem, and a slew of other announcements this week. The cast of the show seems to be nearly complete. Then later on, we got Rai Shah is playing the Inhuman Cameron.
Yeah.
Cameron. Miss Marvel is coming from Murphy's Multiverse. Miss Marvel has entered production early on, but we can still get a sneak peek of what's going on. We don't have too many official details, but looking at a while back, the Illuminati broke news that the Inhumans, Red Dagger, and Cameron will be joining the project, and later rather an interesting addition as was a key player in the original comic series as a love interest for Kamala. He also turned out to be Inhuman, so the fact that this is coming from the actor has confirmed on his Instagram, good job, of his upcoming Disney Plus series edition and what he's playing. And at Cosmic _ Marvel Twitter handle was able to grab a snapshot where it was confirmed because it probably disappeared shortly after. There hasn't been any information on how large this role is going to be, but as we've said, those of us that know the history of Kamala Khan in the comics, she is an Inhuman. I've said it before. This is probably going to be our new introduction to the Inhumans. We're going to forget about what happened before and reintroduce them there. No idea. I see a lot of this character maybe giving us kind of like, oh, the Inhumans, we could maybe discussing the royal family. I don't know. But again, this kind of confirms where I'm thinking the show is going to start. We know, at least hopefully, we're going to get more of a better introduction of the Inhumans through this show.
Two things. One, I think after this whole half a year of podcasting, I've just realized that you and I have the same mic stand, so that's good to know.
Go for the best.
Yeah. Two, I'm surprised. I thought they might. So this is not a confirmation. Of course, they could easily just be using this character, and doesn't mean he's Inhuman, right? They do that all the time. It could be something down the line. But when I saw that, and I saw people kind of running rampant, like the second this casting was kind of out there, people are like, "Oh, look at this! Look at this!" It is interesting because I wasn't sure if they were going to tap the well of Inhumans right yet. I didn't think they were going to write off completely, but I didn't know even with Miss Marvel, like, oh, that's something they could skirt for now, or they'll kind of do the WandaVision thing where it's like, is she a mutant? Is she, is it the stone? Is she an enhanced? Is it power? I thought they could kind of pose as we don't really know what Kamal is yet, right? And then they could open up that Inhuman store if they want. I know there's the Terrigen Mist, everything, but they could change origins all the time,
Yeah.
They really,
I agree.
So that's where I'm not taking this to the bank yet, but it is getting a bit more okay. Not the sense of the writings on the wall, but it's definitely in play, the Inhumans, and I'm for it in a sense. I've never really liked Inhumans. I've tried comic books. I didn't try the show, but like just in general, I think it's you and I have talked about this before. That just did feel like at the time where we just really want to place X-Men, and then we got the rights back, and they're like, well, yeah, we still kind of love the X-Men.
And
so
then they started killing the Inhumans.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, well, we don't need them. So, and I just never like Black Bolt, Medusa, other than Lockjaw, who I want a real version of. I didn't really care about many of them. And maybe just like sometimes it happens with characters that just don't connect with you. So that's why for me, I'm not someone that's highly anticipating it, but I do know it's a vital part of her story. So I will be interested to see if they fall through on this, or maybe if they just kind of said leave it as like a door that they could open, but they haven't yet.
Brent says the star shut off okay and then went into dumped into the trash. I think the show went completely off the rails for me, and I stopped it after seeing this. Is when you shave off Medusa's hair. Yeah, that's where I kind of say, all right,
that's good.
We're gonna take away her power set because we don't have a budget.
That's good. When he said the show started off okay and then dump in the trash, I thought he was talking about us for a second. So that's good. No. Good thing you're talking about Humans. But no.
But I'd say that my favorite, the time I've really enjoyed the Inhumans was the War of Kings, the War of the Kings. Mm-hmm. That whole kind of the end of the modern cosmic saga in Marvel started with Annihilation, Conquest, and then War of the Kings.
I gotta reread that. I've read Annihilation a few times, but the other twos I haven't followed up on. So I got to.
So good.
If they come, then I'll have to do some brushing up. So
yeah, that was our kind of reintroduction to the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
in that series. So, but yeah, so we'll see again. I'm already subscribed to Disney Plus, so I'm going to be definitely watching this show.
Yeah,
And
we'll be there.
yep. So let's see, what do we got? War of Kings. Yes, get Vulcan in there. Yeah. We got to first get the X-Men in there first. All
Exactly.
right. So you want to take our final ad break before we head into questions and comic book corner?
Yeah, so this will be our last one. We got some good questions coming up. We got Fact or Fiction. We got Comic Corner. We got some wild stuff happening in Vision number 4 there. So we will be right back with still a bunch of goodies to end the show. And we're back. So we better start with Brent's question because we skipped it last
He's
week.
still in the chat, so we got
yeah. He's waiting. He's like, I'm not gonna leave till I get. But no, we did. There was so much going on last week of like news and the investors call. We didn't. But Brent's question was. He said many people consider Batman the animated series the definitive Batman. I'm curious if you feel that way about Spider-Man the animated series or X-Men the animated series. That's a very loaded question, Brent, because it. So for Batman, I do. For Batman, like I know you asked about the other two, but I'm in that camp where I do, and Bale is my favorite Batman. Nolan's my favorite live action interpretation. But as far as overall, other than comic books, and even then, I could honestly maybe make you a case that the animated series Batman might be my overall favorite like iteration of Batman just in general. So I think with X-Men, I do or I'm close to. Spider-Man, I don't. Now, Spider-Man, it's disappointing because I feel like lots of people write that off show. They always put like X-Men and Batman up high, and X-Men or Spider-Man's very much like Superman, where it doesn't get the same praise as Justice League. It's like on a different tier. I think they both don't deserve to be on that tier. Spider-Man has some great, fantastic storytelling. They did almost like what the MCU did before the MCU. They did crossover episodes. They're in and out of the universes. They would adapt storylines the same way they did the night Gwen Stacy died, but it was with Mary Jane instead. They did a really good job. The reason it's not a definitive version is because if you go cheap plug, Geek First Podcast, and Brent, they're way in the feeds. I don't even know that you could find them, but we reviewed every single episode of the Spider-Man animated series. Myself, Dylan, Kyle, start from episode 1 all the way to the end. Our always problem with Peter Parker is he was kind of a really cool guy. And that was the thing. Like, it never felt like, I think they got Spider-Man right. They got the villains, they got the world, but Peter Parker never really felt, he had some moments, of course. I'm not saying it was like for me, Jared Leto's Joker or something like that, but like he had some moments where it's like, like almost like sometimes like Garfield was like, you're still too cool for school. And I never liked my Peter like that. So I don't consider Spider-Man that. X-Men, I kind of do, yeah. And I always think that I don't know. I could make you a case of the Dark Knight being on par with Batman the animated series. X-Men the animated series, I don't know if a movie's gonna get to that part because they really dive deep into colors and wackiness and mutants, and it's just so it's like such prime television. So that's me. What about you, Chris? Where are you on these definitives?
Yeah, I mean, Batman the animated series, yes, is mine. But it's not even a question. It's X-Men. That was my first Marvel kind of that was my first introduction to, Marvel on kind of TV. I lived and breathed that show. That was, that ran. Batman, it was different at that point. That was like a higher class in the sense of style of animation. X-Men to me was kind of your standard kind of cartoony animation, but it was the X-Men.
Yeah.
That's all it said at that point. And I really do enjoy Spider-Man the animated time like you. It doesn't get enough praise, but I think it will in many circles always be looked at as just next down the line. Compared to X-Men the animated series, just because I think it's the X-Men, So
yeah. And then his second question was, where did I see? Or I guess it was the fact or fiction. So he can kick us off with the fact or fiction, but I will at least get the results for last week.
Yep.
It was.
I'll read that as you get that. Yes. We will see a Disney Plus show cut together as a movie released theatrically, like at a Fathom event. Says because that question stems from he'd explained offline that Feige had said Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a movie in 6 parts. So could I see that again? Thinking if the show's like a 42 minute kind of, I could see that. But the fact that we're the movie theaters are not where it is.
What you wouldn't say?
I know.
I don't hear talk about it at all recently.
I don't see that for this one. Could I see them try to do an Inhumans thing where they kind of do like a mini movie of the first 2 episodes and supercut them to get people an experience? Sure. I just don't see it yet.
I'll say no, or I'll say fiction. I could say maybe what you were saying as far as, hey, there's a few episodes cut together. Sure. The reason is I'll say no is not even because of the state of the world. Even if the world was completely normal, I think I'd say fiction because I think they want you to go to Disney Plus. I know lots of people would be like, hey, I've already seen it. I want to see this movie complete, but I think they still would rather just people go subscribe. It's weird, but they did that with Mandalorian the very first season in LA. They showed the 3 episodes at El Capitan, but it was still like just like it was like a 50-50 like critics and fans, and then they didn't do that again after in like a non-COVID world, right? So I would say no right now. I would say in a few years when Disney owns its own theaters, then let's talk about that, because I think that's a different thing, because then it's like, well, the money is coming directly to us. I don't know if they will own theaters. It's been talked about. We talked about this before. That law has changed, that you can now, these big corporations could, and Disney might be one of the only corporations to be able making movies and own a theater now. It's one of those things where, there's rumors that AMC might be going bankrupt in January, and it's just like, that's a sad thing, but Disney will eventually get this money back. So I will say fiction for now. If they get the theaters up and running, it's like a Disney brand one, I could see it then, because then they're pocketing it. But as far as right now, I'll say fiction. So last week, we got all these results right here. We will see at least one actor/actress and the character they portrayed from the Netflix Marvel shows officially transition in the MCU. Good timing, because it was a few days before the investors call. It was 58. So these polls came out after, so people get a little bit of like a head start, but still 86% fact, 14% fiction. Still,
oh, 14%. Stop it! That was 14%.
yeah, still 14%. not with it. Within 10 years, we will see a Disney Plus crossover event series similar to Defenders or DCW. 80% said fact, 20% fiction.
I was right. But if I was Star Wars, I was completely right again. I could have gone 2 for 2.
I think that even gave it more credence of like, oh, they're doing it with Star Wars. Well, here we come, champions and whatnot. And then finally, we will get a limited series Disney Plus show focused on the history of Weapon X program. 17% fact, 83% fiction. I was surprised that fiction was so like, people were like, it's fiction, Chris. It's not happening. I was surprised, but hey.
One day it'll happen.
Or I wonder too, some people just think because like Weapon X got so played out in the original Fox, like even Apocalypse, when it's like, we're going back. It's like, really? We've gone back like 3 times now. But
I understand that. It's just, again, these are our fun kind of ideas. So give me some of your fun factor fictions.
Okay, so I got kind of a mix of them. No theme this week. Kind of, what the theme is, just the future, and that's what it is. So I was gonna drop this. The
undiscovered country, as it were.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna drop this, my last factor fiction, but I decided to save it because I got some other ones. So I will say this: Hulk/Bruce Banner will be alive by the time we get to Phase 6. Factor fiction.
Hulk/Bruce Banner.
So that gives us Phase 4 and Phase 5 to potentially kill him off. That's what I'm saying. Because I imagine Phase
You're
6,
all about killing these characters. I say you got your own little theme.
I'm not saying it doesn't. Come on. I get it. Quicksilver, you didn't see that coming. Look, one movie gone. Agent Coulson, first big crossover, gone. Yeah, maybe, exactly. But that's what I mean. These characters die, and She-Hulk could become the pass the torch.
Yeah. It's the whole thing with the rights issue that just kind of holds on to it at that point. Killing him off, I'm gonna go fiction on that one, just because I don't see it. I don't see it happening yet. I don't think he's the one they'll hold on to, but in a sense, like, oh, he's the one we're hanging our hat on in this one. I just see him. He's an easy character to use and keep bringing back. That it's just it's an easy pull, and I don't think they want to take away the easy pull.
I agree with you. I will say fiction, even though it sounds funny, even though I think in Phase 6 he could beat his end, because that's a long time of the character around. I also just think that I agree with some people that think, hey, we could get him back to being the, vengeful, like, monster Hulk. But then after that, it is kind of, what do you do next with him? Because now you've done Professor Hulk, and that's the thing where it's like, do they start to run out of, not ideas, but just kind of, we've done the most we can. Downey said that this week, even though I still think he's come back at one point. He just said there was nothing more to do as Iron Man. That's why I was fine with leaving. And that's why I wonder, will ever come to that point, even Mark Ruffalo, because he's never said he's for or against. Like he's not like Hemsworth where he's like I want to stay years, but he's never like Evans where it's like oh I'm kind of getting done. He may come to a point too where he's like, you know what, there's not much left for me. Could we find a way? And then like, yeah, we could make because I still think people leaving, you can leave the door open, but I still think sometimes a big hero send off like a Yondu, you always remember. Where Nick Fury, he's coming back, but for a while I point out Nick Fury was just floundering in the MCU. I was like, yeah, he's kind of here, but not really. I don't want that. I don't want the Hulk just be floundering around. I want, you're either using him or write him out or like a big death send off, something like that.
Yeah, and I think the good thing is, yeah, Ruffalo can be tired, but the good thing is they can't, right now with the rights being the way they are, they can't do a solo movie. Yeah. So again, it's very easy. He doesn't have to tire of it as much as like Evans and Hemsworth that have to carry solo movies on top of their team up obligations.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess I have a phase, like, well, I guess it's not even them, but I just said that it's kind of the theme of phases. We will see the return of Hela before phase 6. The reason I put this in is just because Christian Bale obviously was confirmed last week, and I still think there's a chance we see her. So I'm spoiling my answer and saying I will say fact because we didn't see her die. We just saw her explode into like a green thing of mist, and that was it. And I think this is a character that I would really like back. I like Cate Blanchett in the role, but I still feel like there's more you can do with it. She, in my opinion, is one of the best actresses in the world right now. She's in my top 10. So I'll say fact. Where are you on this? The next 2 phases, do we get the goddess of death?
Yeah, I think we would revisit that either in Thor or the Loki series. I don't see her being. I see her still tied to those 2 characters.
She would be, well, I would imagine she would do streaming, but I was gonna say she'd be a great villain for Loki because especially like obviously they're not blood, but they're kind of brother and sister by lineage and whatnot, and maybe not this season, but maybe season 2. Yeah, I just really want her back because I really liked her performance, and I'd like to see more of it. So,
and speaking of that idea, we had mentioned that we thought we saw what looked like Black Widow in the Loki series. It's more and more possibly looking like that is Lady Loki, actually.
Right? Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, that's.
But nice misdirect. Nice misdirect. You almost had me.
Clay said if there was a chance that or if there was a character that could make it all the way through this giant universe MCU, who would it be? There's only a small handful of actors
exactly that are left.
Yeah,
it kind of begs me to think like who suffered when Feige said Wanda suffered the most. I said I think Clint's got her a little bit. Clint's got her just a little bit at some points. I think him and her have suffered the most.
I think Clint has her until WandaVision because I think WandaVision is gonna.
Oh yeah. True, and obviously, well, he got his family back. I said, hold on, we don't know where the wife is in Hawkeye yet. We know where the kids are. We don't know where the wife is yet.
I just have a very strong feeling that one is going to be losing lots of family members, and they're not going to be coming back, unlike Clint's. So
that's a hot take there. That's a cool ranch prediction if I've ever heard one.
Oh yeah, I think WandaVision is going to be a tragic love story. That it's going to start off like, oh, this is the best time of my life, and man, it's not going good. Because I've been watching that trailer like a few times for stuff, and like we talked about this, Brent, today when that trailer says like, oh, Wanda, who's doing this to you? And it's just like. There's this moment where, the reason I've been listening to the trailer a lot is because I really like the music. It's from the Bee Gees, but they don't have a trailer version of the song. It's just the trailers always do this. So I've been listening to the song version. And there's this moment where who we think is Agnes, she's like, oh, what's a single lady like you doing in a big old house? And she's like, I'm not single. I'm married to a man, a human one. And then in the distance, Vision comes in, but the girls were talking very 60s comedy, blah, blah, blah. He's just like, Wanda. Like, it's like he's seeing for the first time. So this is what I've been thinking with her is like, I don't think she's going to even know at the end of this. That's what I'm wondering if like she's just completely made all of this up, or even going to Doctor Strange that she's not even going to clue in yet. Like we could go to Doctor Strange and she'll still might be living in this fake reality that she thought was real. So it's like, I think that she might be accidentally, and I guess I'm not doing predictions episode yet, but I think she is making like, this is going to be completely all made up in her head. So when it's, or being like someone's putting it into her head with her powers. So I think it's going to be really tragic when she has that realization that things aren't the way it seems. So,
yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll have to figure out when we're gonna post those. And
I still got one more, Chris.
Oh yes, you do.
He's cutting me off. Oh my goodness.
I can't count.
And then Brent throws up Thor as a guy. Yeah, that's true. He's definitely lost a lot as well. So we've had a lot of people, losing stuff. This one I was gonna throw earlier when we were talking about Doctor Strange, but that's why I saved it. Doctor Strange will have an appearance from a Fox X-Men character. So obviously we have lots of multiverse stuff. We got rumors of Tom Cruise, fuck you, wear your mask or I'll fire you, playing Iron Man. And we have rumors as far as different Spider-Man and whatnot. We have the Patrick Stewart stuff, and we also have those pesky Evan Peters rumors, which again with WandaVision, I cannot wait to see if those rumors are true. So I'm not saying a role, I'm not saying they're a character. I'm just saying you see an appearance from. I know we've talked about it, but I want the official. This is your official fact or fiction. You're on the record.
What, the rest of them weren't on the record?
Well, no, but when we talk about Hugh Jackman, I was like, oh yeah, they could do this, could do this. You and I have never been like, oh, we're for sure seeing an X-Men characters. This is why I'm asking you. It's not for sure, but you got to say fact or fiction. Are we seeing someone from the Fox XCU?
I say yes. I'll say fact on that one because I want it to happen. And I'm going to go with my heart on this one.
Mm-hmm. I will say fiction for now, but anything's possible.
Wait a minute. You put me on the record. You said for now. I mean, that's not a firm.
It's tough because I feel like because if I'm going cameo, right, and that I mean Jack, because I just always feel like when we talk about like, okay, there's a chance they bring Dafoe to play Storm and Norman, and they go, this is the new Norman. I have always still felt that Foggy wants this X-Men to be his X-Men, like this is the new. But then again, Stewart, Jackman. You know what? Yeah, I think I'll say fact actually, just because like even if I'm just a cameo,
talked him into it.
Even if it's just a cameo, I think it'll happen. So yeah, I'll say fact, but I don't think it'll be them being the new X-Men. I don't think it's Hugh Jackman's here to stay.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think they want their own X-Men. But
if we're gonna get that much fan service in Spider-Man 3 with all these different ones, Multiverse of Madness is nothing but fan service, whether real or unreal.
Well, that's what I said on the Investors Call podcast we did. Is like they got to make sure Multiverse of Madness is even bigger than this somehow, and that's the big thing. And even then, I should have just kept with fact anyways, because the elephant in the room, Deadpool could be a clear, easy one that they're bringing over, but as a cameo. So yeah, I'll say fact. So like Chris was saying before, we'll put them out there at some point. You'll vote, and then we will, when we come back in January, we will go over the results. I'll have to save and whatnot. Maybe I'll make it a 2-week poll. No, but we'll put them out there. Whether I'm not sure. We'll put them out there. Maybe put them out there closer to when we're coming back, actually, just so then people kind of get back to the. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. There'll be a plan.
Exactly. There's always a plan. So.
Yeah.
All right. So Vision number 4. How did you feel rereading this?
So as we talked about the first issue, I told you there's like that moment of like, oh, this is the fun Vision comic. Then it got dark.
Oh boy, it got dark fast at the end there.
This is the like, depressing dark, not the like, we're taking a twisty, like this is like, oh shit, we're in real world implications, not in a bad way, but just in that like when it's just these random characters die in a fire, that is, this is dark. This was this is like, it's very much in a good way, very well written, losing its fun glossy, or like it's even this issue starts with that kind of like, you can't fly, kids, like we're supposed to learn to be normal. It's getting back to that almost like we're seeing WandaVision, like and then you see Viv like talking with the boy, and like it seems like they're starting a connection, and maybe it feels like he's kind of hinting that like he wants her to be his partner because maybe he like has a crush on her or something, like something like that. So it's like, they're finding their way into human moments, family moments. And Virginia's on a completely different track right now because, and again, not her fault that I know I'm kind of starting with the end, but I think that's the biggest thing from this issue. When we talked about last issue kind of being kind of like a cool down issue, this was just like, it's just like, even in that artwork, because it's not, I remember the first time it happened, I thought, the gunshots, they're going to maybe show a little glimpse of the kid. No, they show the full like bullet through the head and everything. It is some gnarly stuff. So yeah, it's a disturbing issue in a well-written way, but it sticks with you.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those that, upon reflection, seeing like the characters they focused on in this, it was kind of like, or telegraphing kind of something, it'll bring back the character just because, something's building at that point. Now I knew something was going to be building with, her lab partner saying, hey, I know we're not supposed to be seeing each other in the sense of, because of everything happened, but I'm cool with your brother. It was I was dumb, and I get why he almost choked me out and killed me. It's one of those awkward moments. That's they're trying to build a little love thing happening. And then she says, remember she reflected on her very short life at that point, this would always replace it. Oh, all right,
Yeah.
this is going somewhere.
Another moment of just like, oh man, really? But yeah, anybody, listeners out there, girls, men, female, whoever you're into, if your sibling almost chokes out a person, but they come back on, oh, it's fine, it's okay. That person definitely likes you. So read that as a flag. Not that that should be a situation in your life, but that's definitely a flag that he was like, he was on the brink of death, and he's still like, that's cool, that's fine, we'll get past it. So
You tried to
yeah,
pull a Zack Snyder. Yeah, they're fine. Totally fine.
they're
Totally cool.
fine, yeah. But no, you're completely right. And this issue is just like riddled with these little, and then also like the big thing at the end, but riddled with just more just like signs of doom, just like little breadcrumbs to, if you didn't think this was going to go well, now we're telling you it's for sure not going to go well. And it sucks because you start seeing, it sucks in a good way. You start seeing, like I said, Viv, like even them saying that she'll reflect on this. So clearly, again, it's kind of foreshadowing, but showing that this moment meant something to her, because the kids at school still like just treat them poorly, and they just look at them like monsters and everything like that. So it's like, this is a moment that she had with this boy that maybe she's having some feelings for, but one, she's not going to get a long life. So that's sad. But then two, it's just that, again, it's that like, oh, you want them to have this life. You want them to build, you want them to be better. And then it just it's going to go awry, but it already went awry at the Grim Reaper, but even more so now with the tragic stuff that happens at the end.
Yeah, and the idea of, the all the students like parting like the Red Sea, they don't want anything to do with them at that point. But you get his Vision's wife calling him as he's fighting with the Avengers. I love this conversation. Only Vision can still focus on these two things at once, being who he is. But, she's asking, I need you at home. But he said, well, it's my time at night. And she said, yeah, but you're needed here. It's like, okay, yes, I understand. I'll talk to Iron Man, and perhaps Nova can call it in. He was supposed to have the night off to be with his mother, but sacrifices must be made. Yeah, you're just pulling rank.
Sorry, 100%.
Sorry, kid. You don't get to have a family. I'm a robot. I need to be with my robot family. And Nova's gonna be like, are you kidding me?
Your actual blood that raised you, this family I just created. But yeah, no, it's so funny. It's like, well, yeah, I guess seniority is a real thing. But yeah, again, even in that sense where they laid that thing in with Viv and everything like that, but that's still, that Virginia's talking about something very dire and important, but it's kind of a comedic beat as far as, he's fighting guys, and they're having like this conversation. Well, can you do like just like what you do if you're at your husband or wife calls you at work and you're multitasking? So it was fun to see that real world stuff brought into a larger scale, which I liked. And she just sets it like, hey, I really need you home and stuff like that. And that sets up, obviously we've talked about, hinted about, but she goes and confronts the person that has the video footage in the video, or the guy, and it ends up being the dad of what's the kid's name again, that's which I can't remember his name, but the one that
the lab partner,
the one that kind of maybe has a crush on Viv and almost got choked out. It's his dad, and he lays it on the line and just says, hey, that you can't be. Go ahead.
But I love the backstory of how this came about. That was really interesting, that he was the intention was for him to like introduce himself, welcome to the neighborhood. They knew they were lab partners at that point, and just how quickly that moment never happened. And so what could have been because of this incident.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. As far as that's almost like the father when he's talking about what could have been, he's thinking about the what could happen, and that's where he lays in line of like, your robot son, whatever he is, almost killed my son, and that can't happen again. He's like, I'm not asking for money. I'm not going to show this to anybody. I just want you to leave. I just want you to be gone. And then, like I said, it just gets brutal and very disturbing because one, she like, what is the term they use for when they phase, right, or whatever it is? When
they phase, because he's saying all I need you to do is leave, just never return. And she's like, no, we're not leaving. We belong here. You don't get to tell me that at that point. And you're right. It's just tragic to even begin. It's just awful. It's just outright awful, because this was not intentional on either one of their parts, and that's putting it lightly.
It's not, but then when it takes the real turn, so she phases, he goes to shoot her, the bullets go through and kills the boy, so he shot his own son by the distinct of, she phased through and whatnot, so that's tragic. But then as he's like bawling, saying, I'm gonna make you pay, well, she just walks over and clunks him on the head and kills him. And that's where it is so like, she's at this point where it's all tragic, but that's at the point where you have to go, well, you have to take responsibility and tell Vision what you did, everything like that. Nope, it's just another secret on top of another secret. And she walked over, and that might be because she's, not used to this world, but she literally just went over and killed another person. So she, in a sense, took two innocents' lives. So that's where you go, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to go down the right path, and it's already gone. She's gone, because if that mistake happens, you made a mistake. It's tragic. You'd have to pay the consequences, but it was a mistake. Her killing the father, it's like, well, you've taken this to a step now where it's hard to, in a good way, align with you, to understand you as a character. Be like, I couldn't relate to that situation. I can't relate to many situation in this Vision comic, but that in particular,
you know what I do? I had that problem with phasing too.
But in particular, it's like, well, like I said, you've crossed the ultimate line now. So,
but yeah, so another kind of cliffhanger, and looking at a Marvel Unlimited, I see the preview image of the cover of the next issue. So we're gonna get some interesting some things are going to be happening as an end result. I think from what I remember, I think we're going to get some Vision's going to start having some questions about what's been going on.
Yeah, because eventually, all these things start to pile up, and what's that expression? If you see hoof prints, it's usually hoof. Or if
what was that again? Need a hard hat working on that?
The hat's getting ready. If you see horse, what? Oh my God! What?
No, it's got to be your head up at T-Bones.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I did the fucking Tommy Boy thing. But either way, if you see horse prints, hoof prints, it usually is horses. Smoke leads to fire. People missing.
Should have stuck with the smoke and the fire. Easy.
I should have started with that.
Don't church it up. Church it up.
People missing and dead maybe leads to Vision having some questions. So we will return with that in January.
Yep. So, but yeah. So number 29.
Mm-hmm.
We've had like we said earlier, we didn't know how this show was going to go with COVID. We were quite nervous, actually, all things considered, of how the show is going to go. But, to be perfectly honest, I think outside of maybe 1 or 2 weeks, we've had pretty solid news weeks at that point. And so thank you, Kevin Feige, thank you, Scoopers, for giving us this stuff. But all joking aside, again, we can't say it enough. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Continue to help us grow with this. And as we transitioned halfway through this to a live show as well, at that point, that's done some well and some great interactions. But 2020 gave us not a lot of huge content at all, but 2021, I'm fairly certain we know we're getting at least WandaVision and streaming. So this will take the show into a new direction. So we'll be looking forward to that. And, but yeah, so it's been exciting. And again, thank you, Travis, for letting me be a part of this journey with you.
Oh no, thank you for coming aboard. When we talked about this, I hit you up. I said, I want you to, because we'd only talked a few times on SDS, but I like your show and I liked you. And I thought, I think we could have some good stuff here.
You really like me.
and that's been one of the best things too, that people always say, like, oh, you guys have such good chemistry. It's just like, we've not even podcasted that long together, but we just, we have a good back and forth, and we have differences, but we have, Chris puts up my food analogies, which I didn't hit him on with today, but I had so much eggnog. I wasn't thinking, I can't even get analogies right.
No. What did you had one you kept on going back to this whole show?
Joker. I said Joker
there we
5
go, Joker,
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You brought DC into it.
Yeah. Oh my God. He's talking about Batman. He's the only guy. He's the reason they're making that Joker comic book. I hate people like him. Yeah, I am the reason. I'm gonna buy the Joker comic book. Sue me. But
and he's gonna like it too, even if he hates it.
Oh yeah, you'll hear about. But oh no, like Chris said, when we started this, I was like, oh, great time to start a podcast network when all the content dries up, But luckily, it's all the shows have made it through there, and yeah, again, you'll be hearing from us. I know SDS is going on a break. We're not sure what DC Alliance. Got to talk to those guys, but you got your retros. If you want to, I guess I'll transition into where you can find me. You can find me at Traspy Snail. I'll still be over there at Geekverse. We'll be doing some weekly things and whatnot. Wonder Woman's coming up, so we'll be talking about that. We have After Nines and stuff. Our famous bloopers episode comes out every year, and that's lots of fun. We just get to pull in bloopers and the best of a Geekverse. But yeah, so you'll still be able to hear me around the airwaves, and maybe I might make a appearance here or there on a podcast for the network. But if you don't hear me on the network, if you just listen to Marvel Alliance, till 2021. Again, just a big thank you, and I'm very excited for what's to come in the future. So, Chris, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Balga. You can follow this show, Marvel Alliance, on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to give feedback. If you have some fact or fiction questions for us, continue to do that. If you have a few seconds at that point, you can rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or whichever your platform of choice may be. As always, thank you, Travis. Thank you, everyone who joined us to kind of usher in and wearing us out of 2020. At that point, we all are saying, let's move on. 2020, please, dear, whatever. At that point, we're done with 2020. Thank you all for being part of this journey. We look forward to a great 2021. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. We'll see you the first week back in January. Thank you all. And as Stan the Man continue and will always say, Excelsior, true believers.